Hanaki! Did you know that our souls are connected by fate? What do you know? I'm Yuno Hanaki from production Kawaii's Hanamizuki. Hello! Good evening, hello, hello, welcome in everybody. Welcome to another YuNovels presentation of Cupid Parasite this time. This one was a bit harder to prepare for because I didn't realize just how much I actually needed to explain in order for you to like understand the premise of the game. I've been sitting here, every time I talk about Cupid Parasite in passing, I'm always just like, oh yeah, you know, it's a more lighthearted, kind of like comedy-based game, so it doesn't take itself as seriously, but there's still like a lot of plot for a game that doesn't take itself that seriously. So, I realized that there was a lot I needed to be able to talk about, both for each of the love interests and even for some of the side characters, because they're like, they are not all that meets the eye, so to speak. And so, I needed to do some preparation for that. But I got it together, we're all good, I got it, we're all good. As for me, I'm doing well. Things are going okay over here. This was one of the last things I really had to do in terms of, like, work stuff. Well, I have one more thing I have to do, but I'm saving that for tomorrow. I worked my butt off today. I was doing, like, I wrote another thing. I recorded for another thing. I then spent the rest of the day on the slideshow. Man, I've been, firing on all cylinders. I'm ready for my break. But, I'm still very happy. I had fun with everything I was doing. It's just been quite exhausting. Okay. So what else did I want to say? In terms of housekeeping, reminder to members, Tier 2 and Tier 3 members, we will be having a Gorilla, because it wasn't on the schedule, Gorilla members stream tomorrow before the main chatting stream. So maybe like a couple hours before. I'm thinking maybe like 4 p.m. or 5 p.m. Eastern, EST, Onigashima time, maybe? Somewhere around there. So it's gonna be kind of like an afternoon, early evening stream, and it might go up until the chatting stream, if that is okay. So you'll be getting like back-to-back Buno. Because I'm not sure how much time I'm going to actually need to discuss what I want to discuss there, so we'll see what happens. If it ends up being a bit shorter, it's a bit shorter. Then there's like a break in between. Yeah, back-to-back Buno to Buno. Exactly. You get it. So that's kind of what we will be looking at there, if that is okay with you guys. That'll also allow me, I think, to like get as many opinions from the members as I can, since it'll be kind of early. Okay. I am going to be talking a lot this stream, and it's okay if everything I say kind of goes in one ear, out the other. But I am very passionate about Cupid Parasite, so I am hopeful that I will be able to present it in a way that gets you guys kind of interested, maybe. Maybe not enough to play it. I feel like compared to Amnesia, Cupid Parasite is the kind of game that might be a bit harder for guys to want to play, personally, just like in my opinion. But, I don't know. Maybe it will be a don't knock it till I try it sort of deal for you guys after I explain the general premise and stuff. We'll see, we'll see. Yuno's voice box seeing the stream about to start. Yeah, I do need to be careful. I would prefer to not get vocal strain right before I go onto my break. But I've got water. I will stay hydrated. I will take breaks. If I pause for what seems like a weird amount of time, it's probably because I'm letting my voice kind of regain some stamina points. But yeah. Is there someone in this game that I can hate like Helvetica? Ooh, maybe. When I go through some of these boys, I think there is one who's, like, got a vibe that's similar that you might hate. But we will see. We'll see. There's actually two, I think, who might scratch two different itches in terms of, like, dislike of Helvetica. Amnesia seemed cool because it also had that mystery-solving element. Hopefully this game has something like that. You'll see. Okay, well, it sounds like we're ready to get started. So, let me... I'm gonna pop out chat properly. Because sometimes the one on OBS does not show everybody, which is very silly, to be honest with you. Did I tweet? I did. Go me, I remembered. Alright. Okay. I'll put you guys here in the spot where chat normally is in my layout. Okay. So, Cupid Parasite, or lore in my dating sim, it's more likely than you think. Okay. Feel free to interrupt me at any point if you have questions, by the way. I am willing to explain as much as possible, and there will be spoilers, so that's why this next slide. Once again, like during my Amnesia presentation, major spoilers. There will be spoilers. There will be discussion of major plot points, because there are surprisingly a lot of them. So just keep that in mind. I'm going to basically be explaining not the entirety of the game, because a lot of the more like romantic moments and things like that I'm not really going to cover. But if you care about plot spoilers, maybe don't watch the stream. Okay. So, see, the problem... Oh my god, my head's in the way. You're not going to even be able to see this. Hold on. I have to fix my head. My big chibi head. Can I, like, move to the side and it's better? That's a little bit too far to the side. Can I go, like, over here? Yeah, that's better. Not ideal, but... My head was too big. It was in the way. I mean, I'm gonna read it out loud anyway, so I guess it doesn't matter, but... I'm over here in the nerd corner now. Okay. So, the synopsis of the game. You play as Cupid. Cupid has been around for about 200 years by the time that the game starts, and she is bored as hell. Every day is the same old thing. Time passes differently in Celestia compared to how it does for the human world. Gods basically don't have a concept of time. They do not need to eat or sleep. Really all they do is just kind of faff around in Celestia. That's like all they do. Cupid in particular has been tasked with overlooking this magic pool that she uses to look down into the human world and find people who are compatible, and then she shoots golden arrows to make them fall in love. And that is what she has been doing non-stop every day for the past, like, 200 years. Basically, she's tired of it. And she feels like she's kind of, like, not really actively helping humans as much as she feels that she could be, but she isn't really sure how to fix it. At the same time, Juno, the goddess of marriage, disappears. And because Juno has disappeared, marriage rates in the human world have started to decline. These people are just not getting married anymore. And Mars, the god of war, who also serves as Cupid's father, he is basically, like, putting all of the blame and the pressure on her and is like, oh, Cupid, it's because you're not taking your job seriously enough. Why aren't you firing more arrows? And she's like, God, Dad, get off my back. Please, I'm doing my best. But she's really tired of it. And he's trying to, like, pressure her to, like, get more couples to fall in love so that there can be more marriages. But, like, she gets really frustrated with this because that's not even her domain, that's Juno's. She doesn't understand why she has to cover for Juno's mistakes. So she's kind of tired of the same old routine and eventually is approached by, Minerva, who serves as her, like, aunt figure. Her aunt. And Minerva's like, hey, you want to see something neat? And, like, brings her to her room and starts showing Cupid all of these, like, American, it's implied that they're American, films. And basically starts, like, teaching her more and more about the human world. Technically, human, like, paraphernalia and, like, human things have been kind of banned in Celestia. Most gods don't really know about all of the advancements that humans have made in the time that they have not been, like, actively present and, like, walking around Earth. But Aunt Minerva doesn't give a fuck, basically. And she goes down to Earth all the time and comes back with a bunch of, like, Earth items and like earth clothes and movies in particular. She really likes watching DVDs. So Cupid gets to discover what a DVD is, and they watch movies together, and that's kind of how she starts to learn things about the human world. She learns, like, she watches a lot of, like, action movies, she watches a lot of, like, thriller and spy movies, and she also watches some old-time romance movies.
It's a super chat, so that means it deserves a super jingle.
So through that, that's how she gets more interested in humanity, and she finds that humans are actually more, like, interesting and, like, varied than she once thought that they were. I'm trying to figure out how to word the rest of this, but basically, after, like, wanting to learn more about the human world, Aunt Minerva procures a cellular phone for her. And with this cell phone, she uses it to, she discovers an app called Instagram. I'm pretty sure you know what that's parodying. And she decides to, like, do the thing that Aunt Minerva taught her, which is ego searching. So she searches hashtag Cupid to see what people are saying about the goddess Cupid. But for some reason, all of the results are not about her, but they are instead about this place called Cupid Corporation. And she's like wondering what Cupid Corporation is even about because it's using her name, and she clearly did not endorse this. And so she looks it up, and she discovers that Cupid Corporation is a company that touts that it has a 100% perfect marriage success rate. They are a matchmaking company whose goal is to get a bunch of people matched up and married, basically. And that pisses her off because Cupid is like, hey, that's my job. Why do humans think they can do my job? That's so messed up. So she wants to go to the mortal realm so that she can investigate what the hell Cupid Corp is even trying to do with her name like that. But of course, her dad, who is very protective, Mr. Mars, says no. He's like, why would you bother to go down there? Humans are stupid. You wouldn't learn anything from them. And Lynette's like, God, Dad, you never let me do what I want. And gets really, like, huffy about it. But Minerva is continuing to be the amazing guardian that she is. She helps her. There's, like, a portal in Minerva's room that she allows Cupid to sneak through and, like, helps her, like, get down to Earth and sets her up with, like, a fake name and a chance to enroll in college and just, like, a chance to kind of experience life as a human, you know? Because that's what Cupid really, really wants. So then the alias that she chooses, well, I went with the canon name, but I go with Lynette Mirror. I believe you can change both the first and the last name, but if you do that, the lines are no longer voiced. I left it as Lynette Mirror, and everybody, like, vocally says her name out loud, so they, like, call her Lynette. Or Miss Mirror, or whatever. I like that, so that's why I left it as Lynette Mirror. I will be referring to her as Lynette for the rest of this presentation, so that's that. Basically. So she goes down to Earth. She moves in with a guy. Like, she gets paired in, like, this situation with a guy who ends up being one of the love interests, but we'll get to him in a bit. But she lives with him for, like, a year, just the two of them, because physically, she is not old enough to enroll in college when she descends to Earth. But he's a first year at the university that she's going to be enrolling in. She goes to a place called Los York, which is a combination of Los Angeles and New York City. It's like a weird hodgepodge of both places. I think it's mostly supposed to be New York, but they call it Los York. That's just how it is. We don't question it. He's already enrolled in Los York University. He's studying something else. I think he's an English major or something. But she wants to study romantic psychology, and Los York University is one of the only places that offers it as a major. So, like, after about a year, she gets to enroll, and she studies romantic psychology. She comes out with that as her major. And because she studied romantic psychology specifically, she takes that knowledge and gets a job at Cupid Corporation. And her goal is basically to prove to her father that she can help people fall in love using the skills that humans have developed, like, without having to use divine intervention as a goddess. So her goal is to not use her bow at all during her time working as a oh my gosh, what are they called? As an advisor. She doesn't want to use her bow to, like, force people to fall in love. She technically can, but she doesn't want to. Because she wants to, like, live like how the humans do and understand their approach to things, basically. Within her first year of working, like, post-grad, so now she's, like, 22-ish, I believe, like, physically, even though she's over 200. She has reached the top ranks of the advisors at the company now. She's, like, #1, perfect success rate, everybody loves her, she's really great at her job, and because of that, she is approached by the CEO of the company, to handle this particular group of bachelors called the Parasite 5. Now, the reason that they are called the Parasite 5 is because all of them have incredibly bad red flags that make them impossible to match with people. They are able to assign a specific love type to each guy, but anytime they try to pair these guys with a girl, there's always, like, this red flag always pops up. The red flag always comes up, and then they, if it, like, fails and the matchmaking doesn't work and you have to start over. Every other advisor has given up on these dudes because it's just like, they can't be helped. These guys suck. I hate working with them. So eventually it falls to Lynette because she's the #1 advisor. The company's like, look, you're our only hope. We have to get these guys matched because it's going to look really bad if we don't. And so she is tasked with having to help them find romance, and that is where the main story's shenanigans kind of truly kick off. And that is the basis of the game. Well, okay, that's the basis of, like, the game itself, and then you get to see, like, several days of her, like, interacting with all of the love interests in the common route, because they get put onto this variety show. Well, not really variety. They get put on this reality show called Parasite House, where all of them live together with her under one roof. Well, it was supposed to be with other girls, but you'll understand why that didn't happen. It's just all the guys and her living under the same roof, and the goal is to, like, for her to get them to, like, fall in love, and hopefully, like, maybe people will see them on TV and be like, hey, that would be so cool if you could decide to date one of these guys after seeing them on the show. It's also good promotion for Cupid Corp, so I guess it's a win-win all around. And then the majority of the routes actually take place after Parasite House. This is a minor spoiler, I guess, but basically Lynette will fail with every other Parasite, except for the route that you're on. And it's usually after she's no longer working with them as a client. Usually the romance doesn't really kick in with any of the guys until after they've all quit as clients at the company. The other guys will still be kind of present to, like, a pseudo level in the route, but they are no longer, like, clients for her, so they do kind of give up. And she doesn't really manage to do it. Oh, I forgot to say, part of the bargain that the CEO uses to get her to take on the Parasite 5 is that if she is able to confidently get all of them matches and get them married, then she will get a promotion. And she'll become, like the head, like, advisor, like, manager, basically, like, a really high position. And that's what she's gunning for, because she thinks if she gets that high position, then her father will recognize that humans actually have value now. So that's why she takes the job, even though it would be really difficult for, like, even somebody who isn't secretly Cupid. But yeah. So yeah, it is kind of sad. She doesn't get that promotion. The part about marriage is odd since it's supposedly about love, and love doesn't always end up in marriage. Well, see, the focus of the company is on marriage. The company wants everybody to eventually, like, date to marry. Most of the clientele join the corporation as members in order to find a marriage partner. Love and marriage get kind of equated together a lot in this, and that is something that you will also understand as I go through the slideshow, but this is just the general synopsis of the game. So, like, that's kind of what we're working towards here. We are working towards dealing with the Parasite 5, getting to know them, figuring out if we can get them married. Which, as I said, spoilers, you can't, besides the one route that you go down in the game. Are they actually boy fails, or is the game just making it hard for the Parasite 5? It's both. I think that some of their red flags are a bit silly, or a little bit exaggerated, but I do understand why they are considered red flags. I am not really a girl's girl all of the time. Like, sometimes I don't really understand how girls think. So while I can get the perspective that Lynette and the other girls have is like, oh, these are such bad red flags, but I'm also just like, I don't know. I think in this particular instance, it's not terrible. But I get it at the same time, because I think the game kind of exaggerates it so that people better understand, like, why these things happen with these guys. But I would say that they are also boy fails pretty often. But okay. Now that you have the basic premise of the story down, and like kind of what we're working with, let's start introducing some of the characters. Starting with our beautiful Cupid. Look at her. Look at her. She's so cute. Beautiful girl. Look at her. Ah! I love her so much. Anyway, so this is Lynette Mirror, also known as Cupid. I admittedly don't call her Cupid as much as I call her Lynette. So, like I said, I'm gonna be calling her Lynette most of the time. She's a girl boss. Period. End statement. The fact that she was able to not only, like, commit to going to human college, despite it being her first time on Earth, and then not only excelling in college, but then getting a job at, like, the most desirable matchmaking company, and then becoming its top advisor within a year, she is so girl boss. She literally, like, knows what she wants, and she's very determined to, like, prove herself to her father and, like, to everybody around her. I love Lynette. We've talked before about how a lot of Ultimate games either have a very passive protagonist or a very active one. She is a great example of an active protagonist. I think that's why I can only call her Lynette. Like, I can't see her having any other name because I just feel like she is her own independent person. Like, she's just Lynette. She's very strong as a protagonist. She's really great. Okay. So she starts out kind of ignorant about the world around her, which makes sense because she was living a kind of sheltered life up in Celestia for hundreds of years. But she actively tries to, like, learn more about humanity and tries to improve herself. She's also very work-focused. She wants to succeed at her job. She wants to help couples find love. She wants to do it, like, with her own hands and, like, her own efforts. She works very hard. She doesn't want to take the easy way out with her bow. Technically, she can't anyway, because if she uses Cupid's bow, she will get noticed by the gods up in Celestia, and they'll probably make her go back. Because they can use the divine artifacts of each god to track them. But, so she was told not to use her bow, but she also just doesn't want to use it because she thinks that that would be the easy way out for helping people find love. She wants to do it more naturally and actually focus on how humans do things, because she wants to learn. So she is actually the Cupid Parasite. Surprise. But she's the Cupid Parasite because, her friends all note that she is obsessed with pairing people up around her. Like, she is constantly, like, looking at her friends and being like, you two would make a good couple. Or, like, I think that you would actually work really well with this other guy in our class. Like, she's constantly making those kinds of comments like that. And she's always focused on pairing other people, but never bothers to think about herself. She does not realize that people have romantic interest in her. She doesn't even think about other people as romantic options. She's really just, she's here to make everybody else happy, and then she's like, okay, my work here is done, and, like, doesn't even realize how adorable she is and how, like, pretty she is. So when people actually get interested in her, she's like, hey, whoa, wait a minute, where did that come from? Because she just didn't notice. She's too focused on other people. And that's why she's the Cupid Parasite, because she will never, well, according to her friends, they think it'd be impossible for her to find love because she's so focused on other people, she doesn't bother to think about herself. And that is why she is a parasite. So she's a shipper? Yeah, sort of. Except she will actively try to, like, make people get together, is the thing. She's not so much a shipper as she is, like, actively forcing people to, like, start dating or, like, seeing each other romantically. Well, forcing is a bit of a strong word, but, like, she focuses a lot on making sure that these things actually happen. But she's determined, even in the face of adversity, parentheses 5 problem children, to help people find love. Most people give up on the Parasite 5 very, very quickly, and that's after only working with one parasite. The rest of the advisors are shocked that Lynette is suddenly working with all 5 of them. They're just like, are you crazy? I had to just work with one, and I wanted to rip out my hair, change my name, and move to Antarctica. Like, they are so shocked that she's willing to take this on, but she's just like, I'll do whatever it takes because they are our clients and they need to find love. And I'm just like, I love that for you, Queen, but also, you're gonna go insane, I think. This is how I personally view Lynette, but I basically think that she is very cute and very pretty, but she is not demure. She will absolutely kick your ass if you piss her off. There are a couple points where she does get genuinely angry, both at, like, the love interest for ignoring her advice or, like, not paying attention when she arranges lectures for them, to getting mad at other people for treating the love interest like shit. Like, she's very protective of these boys, and is like, hey, I know that they can be kind of shitty, and I understand where your anger is coming from, but that doesn't give you a right to be shitty back to them. And I think that that's really cool. She is a very good person, I think. Like, just wholeheartedly, she's got a lot of, like, really good energy around her. Also, like, look at that design. It's got such, like, fun, poppy colors. Something I like about this game, that I might get into a bit, like, maybe near the end, if I have time, is that, like, I love that this game has such a, like, pop aesthetic. It feels very retro, because she watched a lot of, like, older retro movies. The soundtrack does this too, but it has a very, like, poppy, like, old-timey, like, retro soundtrack as well. It just feels like you're watching a like, older rom-com movie, and it's very, very fun. Like, the whole vibe is just, like, really good. You'll see it in kind of the love interest designs too, but, like, Lynette's design, I think, incorporates a lot of really good color. In terms of her Cupid powers, she wields Cupid's bow, obviously, because she is Cupid. You can't really see it in this image, but Cupid's bow stays as, like, a necklace around her neck. And whenever she wants to use it, she just holds up the necklace and it turns into the bow. She can use the bow to check people's compatibility. Like, if she points it at someone but doesn't fire, she can check compatibility between two people. And then, in terms of arrows, she has both the golden arrow, which is the thing that makes people fall in love. If she shoots you with a golden arrow, you fall in love with the first person you see for 30 days. So it lasts for an entire month, and then whether or not the feelings still last after the arrow wears off is kind of up to the couple, basically, but she kind of can jumpstart it with the golden arrow. The leaden arrow does the opposite. The leaden arrow, if you fire it at somebody, it will make you, like, stop being in love with them. She uses that to break up couples who are not good for each other, or people who are experiencing a love that is very painful. For example, if you have an unrequited love that is just causing you nothing but pain and suffering, she will fire the leaden arrow at you, and then you will be able to get over it, basically. Does using the check function of the bow alert the gods or just shooting it? I believe the check function is okay. It's firing that makes them realize that it's being used. But yeah, she has those two arrows. Yeah. So that is our girl. That is who we see the story through the lens of. She's super cute. I love her. The Amnesia heroine, I can't really feel anything one way or the other about her, because even though her design is cute, her personality is kind of lacking until the sequel games, because that's where she actually has her memories and has a personality. But, I really like Lynette's personality. She's very charming as a heroine. If she doesn't use the bow, does she stab you with the arrows? No, she can't do that. How reliable of a narrator is she? I would say fairly reliable. I don't think she never really omits anything. If something gets omitted, it's because she genuinely did not know about a thing. I think she's pretty straightforward with how she's explaining everything. The game is usually told in first person, and it sometimes will switch. Like, usually it's Lynette's POV, but sometimes it will switch to a love interest POV, so that we kind of get a feel of how he is thinking in that situation as well. And we occasionally get glimpses at, like, scenes that take place outside of their, like, budding romances, but not very often. That's mostly for, like, us as the viewer to get a feel for the plot. But no, she will not stab you with the arrows. I guess technically she could, but she's, like, a perfect marksman, so she wouldn't really need to, like, take the arrow and stab somebody. But also, I think even if she took an arrow and tried to stab somebody, that would still alert the gods that she used the arrow. So I think that would still count. I understand wanting to find the technicalities, but she is not the kind of girl who would want the technicalities. She wants to be able to work hard and, like, go the more difficult path to, like, prove herself. And to prove how reliable humans can be. Okay. So that's our girl. Bonus. Here's one of the lines that I really loved from the game. I had to take a screenshot of it, but this is her being like, honestly, I wouldn't miss because you've pissed me off, ma'am. She gets so angry. She's so cute. This is her threatening to fire an arrow at a woman who was being clingy and kind of overbearing in front of one of the love interests. She's very protective in this instance. She's like, you're really making me mad. And she openly says it. Like, the fact that she's willing to openly say such things in front of people is like, she's honest. She will not give a fuck. She wants to be able to, like, beat you up if you cause problems. And I love that. My queen. We stan. Anyway, do you understand what I mean now? Like, looking at the game overlay of, like, the poppy colors and the kind of, like, old-timey feel to everything. It's so good. I love how vibrant all the colors are. The cars look kind of, like, old-fashioned, too. It's just, it's so good. This is the only, like, in-game screenshot that I have. So this is, like, the one glimpse of it that you'll really get here, but I love. The ma'am at the end is funny. I really loved the ma'am. She was like, still gotta be respectful even though I want to shoot her with my bow. For real, she's so funny. I love Lynette. Best girl. Okay. So now we're going to start getting into the love interest, but before that. This is me dealing with all of the routes in this game. So these are all of the tropes that kind of summarize each route. Take your pick. Which one appeals to you the most? Which one do you think appeals to me the most? You can guess. If you were watching my stream yesterday, you can guess. But honestly, all the routes in this game are pretty decent. I like them a lot. They all have tropes that I really like. Is puppy boyfriend and puppy becomes boyfriend two different dishes? Yes. They are two different dishes. They are two different love interests. Yep. Fake dating. Obviously. Obviously. It would be weird to think that it's not fake dating. But yeah, so these are all, like, the general premises of the different routes. When I'm talking about the love interests, I did not put them in my preferential order. I put them in order of the recommended play order. Some Otome games have a recommended play order where you should play the routes in a specific order, basically, in order to fully understand the scope of the narrative. And that is what I ended up accidentally doing when I played this game. Because for me, I always just go in fully blind my first playthrough, and whatever happens, happens. I ended up getting the boy who is considered the best to start with. So I just ended up playing in the recommended play order. So yeah, that is how we will do it. Going through these. Okay. We might. I'm gonna try and talk a little bit in depth about each boy, like on their designated slide. But if I need to come back and discuss anything about a specific guy, feel free to let me know. Also, yes, it is friends with benefits. Okay. Wah, 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 wah. Starting with the Glamour Parasite, Ryuki F. K-Sign. You can't see his face very well, actually, because of my dono text. Hold on. Let me move that. Let me move that. I don't have a good place to put this. I guess we'll go over here. You can stay over here for now. He has the face of a dono text. Isn't this a very demure-looking gentleman? Yeah. Okay, so this is our demure parasite. No, he's the glamour parasite. Ryuki FK Cyan. So, main things to know about him. He literally will not acknowledge your presence unless you score above a 60 in his personal aesthetic ranking. So he's a glamour parasite quite literally because he cares so much about, physical beauty. This love type is represented as Eros. So one of the running themes of the game is that there are, 5 and then later 6 common love types that people can be sorted into. In order to choose your route, actually, you have to take a test that determines your love type, and then you get matched with the boy that matches your love type. Ryuki's is Eros, which focuses a lot on, like, outer beauty and, like, aesthetics. Is usually seen as a little bit, like, shallow. I wouldn't rate that bright yellow above 60. He likes really bright colors. You'll understand why. Also, no, this character was not my favorite. I like him, but he was not my favorite. This is just the character I got paired with when I first played the game. So I guess that means my love type is Eros. Anyway. But yeah, he will literally not acknowledge your presence. There are several points in the game where a character will speak to him and he will not realize that he's being spoken to by somebody because his brain just actively blocks out anybody that is uglier than a 60. I believe when he first meets Lynette, her score is, like, a little bit below a 70, so she's, like, just barely acknowledged. Which is crazy. Okay, so he is also the youngest love interest at 19 years old. He is a fashion designer, and he owns his own men's fashion brand called Ryuki. Well, in the JP, they just call it Ryuki, to kind of, like, emphasize that it's his name, but different. But I just call it Ryuki because I feel like that's the better way to understand it for English speakers. That flag is kind of bright red. I mean, like I said, not all of them are justifiable. So he constantly needs to have his skin hydrated so he will not dry out. He is constantly, like, holding and using that spray in his hand to, like, spritz his face when he thinks that he's getting too dried out, which is quite often. He will also spray other people if he thinks that their skin is too dehydrated, and he sprays Lynette a lot because Lynette is still new to the human world and does not really understand human skincare regimens, I guess, very well. Ryuki is basically a beautician on top of being a designer. He's really good at, like, recommending skincare products and things to people. And will, like, help you figure out the best way to take care of your body so that you can have good skin. No, he's not a dry boy. He's actually quite moist. It's other people that are dry in comparison to him. I had a running joke in my head every time I saw him where I figured that his skin must just feel so wet. It must just be, like, the wettest experience on the planet because of how often he wants to moisturize. It's crazy. But yeah, so he has synesthesia, is one of the other main traits about him. He can see people as colors, and he can also identify those colors by their specific hex code. So when he meets somebody and he's, like, interacting with them, he will automatically assign them a hex code. And, like, you know, that, like, kind of says something about their personality. The brighter the color, the more positively he will think of you. Which is probably why he wears such bright neon colors and, like, those crazy contrasting colors. It seems that he prefers the, like, brighter shades and, like, brighter, bolder colors. Most people that he is lukewarm towards are some shade of, like, muted or, like, a grayish color. And then, like, pure perfection is, like, a very, very bright color. There's a character he actually meets in the sequel game whose color is, like, basically just 1 degree off from pure white, and they are basically the pinnacle of beauty in his eyes. So color often correlates to, like, his understanding of beauty and thus correlates to a person's, like, ranking on his aesthetic scale. The only reason that he joined Cupid Corporation to find a marriage partner is because his older sister and grandmother asked him to. They said that this would be better for him to understand fashion. So his route is basically all about his family issues. The Keisai-in family has their own brand called Keisai-in. And it's a very well-known brand that's, like, worldly acclaimed. He's part Japanese, part American, I believe. Japanese mom, American dad. They are all involved in the arts in some way. Dad is a model. Mom is a famous violinist in, like, a big famous orchestra. Grandmother is the one that owns Keisai-in and is, like, very serious and meticulous when it comes to design. And then the older sister, I believe, is a is she's not a stylist. She's doing something else in the biz though. I think she's a makeup artist, right? I think she's doing makeup specifically. So Ryuki feels this pressure to like take over the family because he's the son from his grandmother, and his grandmother is very strict. The Keisayan family has a very strict 10 mandates for beauty that all of the family members are expected to follow like to a T in order to stay perfect. And that is why he has such high standards when it comes to other people's beauty, because he doesn't want to disappoint his grandmother. So that's like a bulk of the route for him. It's trying to like appease his grandmother and like become worthy of inheriting the Keisayan brand, while also trying to prove himself with Ryuki, because initially his grandmother was like, you're not good enough to take over Keisayan. Your designs are lacking something important, so you're not allowed to take it over. And he was like, what the fuck? And then he had to start his own brand, and is not allowed to use the Keisayan name until he proves himself to grandma. Which he can't really do until he learns what love is, basically. And he's like, I think that's stupid. I understand all the fundamentals of fashion. Why do I need to understand romance? And their route is very much a slow burn, because he doesn't really realize that he has romantic feelings for Lynette until, like, way down the road. But, like, it's also, like, his first love, and it's also her first love, so a lot of it is focused on, like, the slow burn of, like, the transition from, like, estranged strangers to like awkward acquaintances to like friends, and then eventually to lovers. It's a very slow burn experience, but it's very, very cute. He's very cold and grouchy towards Lynette at first. Like I said, she's just a little bit below a 70 when they first meet, and her color is like kind of a muted pink, which is like not bad. So like he does recognize her face and remembers her name, but it's still kind of like a saturated color. And then, as time goes on, her color and her ranking do change, but he doesn't understand why, because she didn't really improve her beauty physically, and he actually has a breakdown over it because he thinks his vision's no longer working and he can't see beauty properly anymore. But it's because he fell in love with her, and when you fall in love with someone, your standards of beauty completely, like, warp and change, and people, like, become the exception to the rule, you know? It's very cute. The final color that she has is like this pastel ombre, from like this pretty pastel pink to like a powder blue. And he sees it in like this glowing kind of like ombre around her because he's in love with her. And like it makes her ranking basically like a 90, I believe. And most people can't even achieve 90. Like the highest he's ever really encountered in his life is like upper 80s, but like she gets like into the 90s and he's like, this is so weird. She didn't do anything to like change her outer appearance. Why is she suddenly like appealing to all of my senses? This isn't right. And it makes him have a breakdown. But then he realizes that it's because of love, and that like changes his whole like worldview. And once he understands that it's love, he's able to design things much more freely, and even his grandma like recognizes that he found like love for fashion again, specifically by feeling love for another person. It's very cute. It's a very wholesome route. And his CV is Junya Enoki. I include the seiyus in these presentations in case otome likers stumble upon them. Because for a lot of people, it's not even just like character designs, they do care about the voice actors. So even if you are not really a big seiyu person, there are some people who care about seiyu, so I include that as part of my presentations. Is there a chance for him to reject love once he realizes it's changing his vision? I mean, he didn't realize it was love is the thing. He did start, like, rejecting everything around him and kind of shutting down. But he had to be told by one of the side characters in this route that he was in love, and that when you're in love, that just kind of changes your vision and just, like, how things work. And while that does kind of scare him, he's also just kind of like, oh, it's love. I understand. This was the thing that my grandmother and my sister wanted me to find. And he's kind of okay with it, basically. He was more scared of it when he didn't know what it was. He's a good boy. I do think that, like, because it's a slow burn, you really have to be patient with him. Because he's like, pretty insufferable for the beginning parts. And he's, like, strict with her and kind of hard on her. But he has moments of being really sweet. Even in the common route, There's like a CG you can get in the common route where he like notices that Lynette is working late into the night and he gives her a face mask and is like, you need to make sure your skin stays hydrated and like take care of it properly. And he's all like blushy and tsundere and it's very, very cute. He has his moments of being tsundere. I think he's probably the most tsundere of the love interests. But like it's really cute. I think he's a good boy. He's not my favorite, but I did feel very charmed by his route. I hate his grandma, same. Grandma drove me freaking crazy. I was like, why are you so strict? And she could be so mean. Like, when we actually saw the scenes of him, like, interacting with her and, like, being scared of what she thought of him, I was just like, bro, this is not the way to get your grandson to try harder. I know she was doing the, like, tough love act. Because, like, when she does finally soften up, she ends up being much nicer to him. But I'm just like, hey, maybe if you were nice from the beginning, we wouldn't have this problem. Or maybe if you expressed that you were being hard on him because you want him to succeed, instead of just, like, being harsh and not telling him that it's because you want to see him succeed. You have to explain that you're doing this, like, to see somebody, like, do well. That you're not punishing them because you think they don't deserve to do well. Because for Ryuki, he's so insecure about, like, not living up to the expectations of the Keisayan family. Because he was used to the fact that, like, his mom kind of got, like, not disowned. But Grandma was very disappointed in his mom for not taking on the fashion business and going off to play violin. But Mom was just like, but I love violin. I don't love fashion. And then, like, ran away. And then something similar happened with the big sister. Like, the big sister does really like fashion, but the thing she fell more in love with was makeup. So she wanted to focus on doing makeup art instead of becoming a fashion designer. And, like, the whole thing is just, like, trying to figure out what Ryuki himself loves. Also, he has a male fashion brand, and he does like designing male clothing, but as part of the route, he gets inspired by Lynette to start drawing and designing, like, women's clothing. So he ends up offering, like, a women's line, like a women's collection, as part of his offerings, too. And then later on, part of the ending is he designs a wedding dress that he has Lynette model and wear, and it ends up being just for her. Oh, they're so cute. It's very, like... I don't know. I think if you like the whole first love situation, like two young little lovebirds, like having a little slow burn moment, I think that this route can be really good for that. And I did really like it. Don't get me wrong. I did really like the route. It's like, I have my ranking at the end of this slideshow, so I'll be able to explain my rankings a little bit more when we get to the ranking section, but I did really like it. Like, he grew on me. At first, I was like, oh god, why did we get paired with the insufferable one? But, I did really end up liking him by the end of his route. There were some pretty cute CGs and, like, really cute moments that he had. Also, his voice actor does a really good job playing the, like, rough tsundere exterior to the soft boy, kind of, like, insecure interior. It's really good. Have you finished all the routes? Yes. I have completed Cupid Parasite, the first game. I'm still working on the sequel game, but the sequel game is more of like a fan servicey game, so I don't really think you need to have that information to understand Cupid Parasite. So that is all. I'm still in the midst of it. I actually just finished Ryuki's route in the sequel game. It was also kind of cute. It focuses a lot about what they want to do for, like, getting married and, like, the differences between, like, getting married in Japanese culture versus, like, getting married in more Western cultures. It's fun. Anyway, so that's Ryuki. He's very cute. Alright. Alright. Fake dating, 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 fake dating! This is Shelby Snail. He's the prestige parasite. This is my mans. This is my number one, my ride or die, my beloved, my mans. It is he. Ladies and gentlemen, him. It is for he. Your man has a silly name. If you look up Shelby Snail, the first results you get are plushies. there's apparently a very famous plushie line with a character called Shelby Snail, and it's very funny. My running joke is that Lynette buys him Shelby Snail plushes all the time and puts them on his desk, and he gets so fucking sick of it, but also he keeps every single one of them in pristine condition in like a glass case, and he just accepts it as part of his branding now. But every time she brings in a new Shelby Snail, he's like, "Can you please? I'm asking you to stop." And she's like, "But Shelby, I have to make sure that you have time for Shelby." That is my personal headcanon. I would write a fanfiction about this if I had more free time. Anyways. So Shelby Snail. He is the CEO of Cupid Corporation, aka the reason why Lynette even comes to Earth, because he named this corporation after the god Cupid. He is obsessed with working. He puts his company above all else. He is referred to as the prestige parasite because his focus is always on making sure that he is of good prestige. He wants to be #1 in everything. He has this goal to be perceived as like perfect in all things. He wants to have like high amounts of money, high amounts of social status. Basically everything needs to be top tier for him. He is the oldest love interest at 32. He is 32 years old. Yes, yes. So he's pretty stoic in appearance. He doesn't really have much of an outward expression a lot of the time. He's not kudere, because he's actually very confident and smug a lot of the time as well, but he's just like, he's just not very outwardly expressive. He doesn't emote, I guess, very much. He's a very serious guy. He takes life very seriously. He is considered SS in all things. This is what he has aspired to be his entire life. Also, SS, Shelby Snail. Do you get it? It's funny because it's the same as his Anyway. But he basically wants to be SS in all things. And he does prove it, actually, a lot, like, throughout the route. You, like, throw him into any random situation where he has to do something new, and he's able to, like, effortlessly do it. And it's kind of wild. He's just, like, that good at things. That's the power of being SS. So... he's the prestige parasite, but initially in the game, when you are looking at the profile for the prestige parasite, there is no name listed. It is an anonymous form, because... Shelby Snail himself is believed to have a wife that he is very dedicated to. But this was because of a misunderstanding on the interviewer's part during a live interview. The interviewer basically assumed that the reason that Shelby made the company was because he already had a lovely wife at home and was, like, a very, like, dedicated family man. And so he wanted other people to also find, like, a person they could be dedicated to. And Shelby was too awkward to really say no fast enough. And then Shelby's PR team, after seeing this interview and seeing the, like, rave reviews that it got, they were like, okay, we're gonna keep going with this lie. This is really good for your branding. And Shelby was like, and went for it, I guess. He's too awkward! This man's so stupid! So anyway, that's why he has this branding. But also, people can't know that he is the prestige parasite. He's still in there as a member in secret because he wants to find an actual partner. However, the reason he has such a hard time finding a partner is because he is doing it anonymously under the anonymous pseudonym Monsieur S. E-S-S-E. Monsieur S. This fucking guy. So, whenever people get paired with Monsieur S because they are actually interested in a partner who has high prestige, whenever they want to meet him, they meet a proxy instead. He has his assistant, like, go on the dates, like, on his behalf and act as he would, but he doesn't actually meet them. And that turns a lot of these girls off because they're just like, but I'm not actually meeting him, I'm meeting his fucking assistant. And they don't like that. And it's because Shelby himself wants to prioritize his work meetings. So, yeah. So, like, Shelby's just too focused on work, and he wants someone who will allow him to be, like, pretty much absent all the time in favor of his work. His love type is called Pragma, because he wants someone that you can just, like, work together with and, like, cohabitate and, like, have a very, mutually beneficial relationship. that allows both of you to be, like, work-driven, basically. But he's actually single as fuck. He has, like, a bachelor pad, and that's like a joke about it that's made near the end of his route. Like, you go to his place and you discover that it's, like, just, like, a very basic-looking bachelor apartment. It's clean. Like, it's not, like, a nasty bachelor pad, but it's definitely, like, bachelor pad coated. Which is very silly. Anyway, the whole bulk of his story is fake marriage! Hell yeah! Because basically, when you fail to match anybody in the Parasite 5, he eventually does come forward and is like, actually, I was Monsieur S. And Lynette's just like, you know, I had my suspicions. And he asks her very politely, and like draws up a contract and everything to make sure it stays ethical, but asks her very politely to become his fake wife because he is invited to a dinner with like a very important business partner who has a wife and is expecting him to bring his wife. So she pretends to be his wife for a while because she's a pretty anonymous person. So she can kind of like play the role, and you know, as I explained with the fake dating trope in general, they slowly start falling in love with each other, and it's very cute. I really like their dynamic. They're so good. I can't competently, sorry, see, my brain is short-circuiting thinking about him. I can't competently talk about him without exploding because I just love him so much. He's so cute. And he's also so stupid, but so smart, but so stupid. But no, his route's really cute. I like him. There's lots of, like, really good, like, tension moments where, like, actual romantic tension starts building between him and Lynette through their pretending to be married, and it's just, They also just look so good together aesthetically, like his, like, muted silver palette and her with, like, her bright pink and bright blue eyes. So good. They're really cute. His voice actor is Ken. You'll find Ken is in a lot of these Otome games that I play. Maybe it's because I have a lingering bias for Ken. Who knows? But actually, Ken is not why I got this game. I got this game for a different character, who you will see in a bit. But no, I love Shelby. He's a bit of a dork. He's very work-focused, and, like, part of it is, like, Lynette is also very work-focused, so at first things work out super well for them. But then when they start catching feelings, they realize they don't always want to be working all the time, and they actually do want to, like, spend time together and, like, have meals together and, like, have, like, intimate, quiet time that doesn't involve them both having their laptops out, answering emails. And that's kind of what makes them realize, oh god, I'm catching real emotions. I actually want to spend time with this person. That's crazy. And it's very cute, though. They have a lot of good moments, I think, in this route. It's also a little bit slow burn, I suppose, because Shelby does try really hard to make sure that he focuses on this being a work thing, especially because he is her boss, technically. So this is also a combination of, like, fake marriage and then also, like, boss/employee, which to some people might be a bit of an ick. For me, though, I think that they respect each other enough as equals that it's not, like, an abuse of power. Like, he doesn't take advantage of the fact that he is her boss to, like, make her do stuff. He is the opposite. He is constantly telling her, you don't have to do this if you don't want to. I will literally rewrite the contracts that you don't have to do this. I will pay you, like, extra money to just, like, sit here if you want, because just having you here is enough for this, like, lie to keep going. You really don't have to push yourself to do anything. And she's just like, but I want to. I want to help make this more believable. So, like, that's kind of the big crux of their relationship. I think he really tries hard to not abuse his power when it comes to being with her, and I like that a lot. Okay. But no, I think they do a really good job with his route. I initially was worried that I wasn't going to like it because I thought that there might be, like, weird things with the fact that he's, also her boss, but they did a really good job with it, I think. I really liked this route. Also, I feel like with Lynette's personality already being so, like, work-focused and, like, very, I just want to do my job so I can make people happy, I feel like that already makes them, like, a really good pair, because he also cares a lot about his work. I felt like, at least in my initial thoughts, going through the game, I kind of thought that Shelby was the best match for her because of the fact that they both are, like, very work-focused. I guess I think that, like, canonically, I feel like if Lynette actually took the love type test, she would probably get Pragma. Realistically, she would probably get Pragma. Just based on how they explain it in the game. But yeah, that's Shelby. That's my best boy. I like him very, very much. He may have a very silly name, but I like him, okay? He's a good boy. Since he based the company on Cupid, he based the company on her. Not necessarily. He based the idea on Cupid as a concept, but we're gonna get to that. There's a lot to unpack with that question that I can't get to right now. Oh boy. Okay. Next. Gil Lovecraft, the Lovelorn Parasite. So he is who I initially wanted to start this game for. Because his CV is Kimura Ryohei, who plays Tartaglia in Genshin Impact, and I'm a big Tartaglia stan. I really like him. So I was really excited to play a route that had Kimura as the love interest. Also, just look at his vibes. This looks like a very Yuno core type. This looks like a Yuno core type of character. He looks like him too. Kind of. If we change the red eyes to like to the more like dead blue, you would kind of basically have just like a modern AU child. Okay, so Gil Lovecraft. This is the guy that Lynette lives with during college. They lived together for several years. I think like 4 years. He only moves out during her final year, I believe, because that's after he graduates. And he wants to like give her space so that she and her best friend Clarice can live together, but we'll get to that. But he was there first and was the first human technically that Lynette like formally met and got to know. She often credits him with teaching her the most about the human world. Like, if it wasn't for Gil, she probably would still be struggling to understand how humans really, like, interact with one another. And, like, basic human function. He took care of her a lot when they first started living together. And at first, he was, like, kind of, I guess, like, annoyed by it. Because why is this girl trying to live on her own if she's this much of a like, spoiled rich girl? Which was what he thought she was. But then the more he has to take care of her, the more he falls in love with her. Which is a bit weird, because at first he's, like, talking about how he sees himself as, like, her bigger brother, or, like, almost like a father figure in some respects. But then he starts, like, falling in love with her, and I'm like, pause. Don't know if I like that. It's, like, the caretaker to like, romantic interest pipeline that's weird to me. So anyway... So he's a little bit awkward and shy when interacting with other people. He doesn't really, like, let his real personality out super often, even in front of the other guys. And I think it's just because he wants to, like, present himself well in front of Lynette. Basically, he will morph, like, a lot of aspects about himself to suit what he thinks is Lynette's interest in a guy. On his profile, he says that he is a freelance writer and editor because he wants to be able to have time to stay at home with his partner. Like, he works from anywhere because his intention is that he can stay at home and, like, take care of the house for his partner and, like, spend the most time with them. He's a little bit obsessive. Lovelorn means that he hasn't gotten over his lost love. The reason that he has a red flag is because, even though he can cook and clean and is generally, like, a really good guy all around, whenever he tries to get with a new girl, he keeps comparing them subconsciously to Lynette, and also can't stop talking about this girl that he used to know in his past. And that's a big red flag for a lot of girls, just so you guys know. Just so you guys know, that's a big red flag for women. They do not like hearing about girls that you knew in your past. Especially if it seems like you haven't gotten over them. So that's why he hasn't been able to be matched with anybody, even though he's a really nice guy. He's also stubborn to a fault. The problem with him is that he will very stubbornly stick with like, loving Lynette, even if it's obvious that she's going down another route. He will be quite stubborn unless she directly tells him to, like, get over it. But to be fair, she also doesn't really realize that he's in love with her specifically. It's kind of silly. But one of his biggest hobbies, actually, is cars. His family owns a famous car manufacturing company, the Lovecraft Industries, I think is what it's called in the game. But they manufacture cars. Like, a lot of very famous car brands are under them in the game. He doesn't give car bro, but like I said, it's because he kind of, like, mutes a lot of aspects of himself in order to try to better appeal to Lynette. His love type is agape, which is considered to be a very dedicated sort of love. Like, he is a ride-or-die partner. Once he finds someone to love, he very rarely will ever change his mind and go for somebody else. Like, he's going to be for you and you alone, no matter what. And to some people, that can be seen as a good thing, because it's like, you know, that kind of person who's, like, very dedicated to you, really adores you, puts you on a pedestal, basically views you as, like, a god/goddess, depending on your interests. He's very down bad for Lynette, even though Lynette doesn't really realize it. So a lot of his route is about him just kind of like you get the establishment of, like, how he fell in love with her, and then, like, why he is the way he is. Like, he literally thinks that because he overheard Lynette and her female roommate talking about, like, their interests in guys, he heard Lynette's voice say that she wanted somebody who is basically at home all the time and will spend all of his time with her, and that is why he decided to become a writer. Like, he became a writer specifically so he would be able to spend all his time with Lynette to become her ideal man. If Lynette says anything about her ideal type, he tries to make himself that type. Like, he finds out that Lynette likes to eat a lot of unique food, and he, like, makes an entire buffet, basically, for her, like, in excess, because he wants to see her eat and be happy. Basically, everything he does is for Lynette specifically. Not just for, like, any girl that he's interested in. He's only like this regarding Lynette. That's why it's weird. Like, he's really down bad for her. Especially because of the fact that he, like, took care of her so much in the beginning when she was still kind of learning how to human. And he just assumed it was because she was really sheltered and spoiled. But, like, he took... I don't want to say took advantage of, but he, like, used the fact that she was so like, innocent and, like, ignorant to like take responsibility to, like, teach her all of these things. And of course they do have moments that are really cute, but for me, I think it was a little bit too much. I found, like, also he plays, like, into the shy boy vibe a bit too much. There's, like, one point in the route where he reveals that he has, like, I don't know if I can really say this, but, like, he basically tells Lynette that he has, like, done it with other girls before, like, in his past. So he, like, knows how to take care of a woman in bed. And then he, like, suddenly is, like, on top, and he's, like, acting, like, aggressive and more like a carnivore. And I'm just like, where was this the whole route? Because that was kind of what I was hoping this character would be. I was hoping that he would be, like, more aggressive than he was in the rest of the route. But in the rest of the route, he tries to act very demure, very mindful. And that's fine for certain people, but you guys might have realized this about me, but I'm not really into passive guys. I need my boys to be a little bit more active. But it's... his route was weird because I feel like almost the entire time, Lynette still didn't really see him as a romantic option. But then it suddenly just, like, a switch flipped, and she was like, no, actually, I do. Actually, I'm obsessed with him, and I want to be with him forever. And I was like, okay. I don't know where that came from, but sure. I feel like they could have made the transition for these two a little bit smoother. But I guess because he was already so far down the deep end, they kind of had to throw Lynette also to the deep end in order to match his freak, so to speak. But, like, I don't know. For me, I think there were some aspects of this that were lacking. Also, for those of you who are saying the, like, talking about the name Lovecraft, it's not meant to be H.P. Lovecraft. The reason he is named Lovecraft, this is actually a part of his route, canonically. He used to be teased for having the name Lovecraft because it's always talking about how he's the kind of guy who can craft love. How he can craft love directly from his hands. And he hated that. He thought people were just making fun of him all the time because of, like, how he should be like a womanizer or like a ladies' man. because of his last name. So he doesn't really mention it very much or like tries to downplay it because he doesn't like it when people make fun of it. There is no reference to the actual like author with the same name in this game. They just act like Lovecraft is like the silliest name you could give a guy because it's like he crafts love with his hands. It's such a stupid plot point. I was literally just like, huh. Interesting, I guess. Just a JP silly naming thing. Yeah, they were making fun of the fact that it sounds like he's like crafting love, like a love crafter. I don't know. From the creators of Minecraft. This is the Minecraft dating sim. You can date a creeper. Oh man. Anyway. I honestly thought he would sprout tentacles in the middle of the route. Honestly, I kind of would have, like, been more interested if he had some sort of, like, supernatural vibe to him. But unfortunately, as you guys said, he's pretty normal. Like, he doesn't really have, like, that much going for him. Although at the end of his route, he does decide to take over the Lovecraft Industries. Like, he does take over the car company and becomes, like, the CEO of it. Because his dad asks him to. Very cool. Also, he does have an older brother who is supposed to take over, but the older brother really fucking hates cars. And was like, I don't want to do this. Gil, you love cars. Can you please take over? I want to go sell tacos with my wife. No, it wasn't tacos. It was burgers. Sorry. It was burgers. He wanted to open a burger restaurant with his wife. He, like, basically the brother pretended to love cars because he thought that the girl that he was paired with, like, in an arranged marriage also loved cars, and he just really wanted to be with her because he genuinely loved her. But when he finally confesses to her that he doesn't actually like cars all that much, she's like, oh, that's okay. Do you want to go sell burgers? And then they just, like, abandon the company to go sell burgers. Honestly, Based. I agree with that comment, Based. For real. Anyway, true love wins. The brother wins too. But Gil ends up being the one to take over the family business because he does genuinely love cars and knows a lot about them. I need to read that. It's near the end of Gil's route, but it is honestly very cute. I do actually kind of like the relationship his brother has with his partner. It's super cute. But Lynette in this route is generally just, like, very supportive of Gil and, like, all of Gil's, choices and, like, career decisions and things like that. Like, there's a lot of, I guess, like, career crises for Gil because, he realizes that he needs to start making more money so that he can, like, stay in the apartment with Lynette. And so he gets, like, an actual job at a magazine that he really likes, but then he gets too focused on work and starts ignoring her, and that's what makes her realize she's in love with him, because she doesn't like being ignored. So then he, like, stops working at the magazine place, but it's like, but then what am I gonna do for a job? And that's when the brother shows up and is like, Gil, I am so sick of talking about cars. Gil, I wish to go make burgers with my wife. Gil, I have to go make burgers with my wife, please. Take over the family business. Dad really needs somebody to take over the family business. It should be you. Honestly, that aspect of it alone makes it a good route. I don't really care for Gil's chemistry with Lynette. I think they're okay. They have their moments of being really cute. And I kind of like the, like, friendship into lovers vibe that they have sometimes. But, like, it's the things that happen around them in the route that I actually liked a lot more as a story. You're so silly. Let the man season the meat. Let the man put the burgers on the fryer. So true. Okay, rest well. Bye-bye. Thank you for stopping in and listening to me yap. 60% of restaurants fail in the first year. I pray for that, brother. It's okay. In the epilogue, it shows that their burger place actually does really, really well. Good for them, honestly. Their burger stand pops off. Okay. So that's kind of Gil in a nutshell. He's a pretty good guy. I actually like him quite a bit. Besides the, like, weird moments he has with Lynette, like, in his route, I think he's a cute guy. It might be the Kimorio bias in me, though. One of my favorites, Seiyu. Okay. Next up. The Obsessed Parasite. Raoul Aconite. He is a Sillywood (Hollywood) actor who's only enrolled in Cupid Corp to study romance because he's going to be starring in a romance movie and he's never felt love before. So Raoul is immediately not taking any of the lessons seriously, like, from the beginning. He's really only there to study for this movie that he's supposed to be in, and doesn't really care about actually trying to find a marriage partner. He's just kinda there for the ride. And it's obvious both in, like, how he ignores most of the lessons, and also because almost every sentence out of this man's mouth is about mythology. He literally struggles to talk about anything else. If he has the opportunity to talk about some sort of, like, Greek or Roman or Japanese or, there's, like, another type of myth that he really likes, but I can't remember. Egyptian. Basically, if he can talk about any of those types of mythology, he will yap non-stop and will only talk to you about mythology. He does not give a frick about any other thing on the planet. It's only mythology. That's why he's called the Obsessed Parasite. He does not take love seriously, as I said. His love type is Ludus, which is... you see love as something very casual. You will constantly, like, hop from lover to lover. You're mostly in it for, like, intercourse. You're mostly in it to do it, you know? So you don't really, like, get attached to people very easily. That's his love type, so he's, like, always kind of seen love as not a very serious thing. He cares more about mythology. So, like, even when Lynette tries to pair him with girls who are also into mythology, he struggles to get along with them because he always disagrees with their takes on myth. Because one of his favorite things to do is not just, like, discuss mythology, but he wants to be able to debate mythology, like, with people that he's close to. And if he doesn't like their takes on myth, or if he thinks it's very, like, basic, or, like, something they just looked up really quickly online in order to talk to him, he gets really disinterested in the conversation and just, like, shuts down. Because he wants to have, like, an actual invigorating discussion. Route takes several surprising twists that kept me pretty invested. He's my second favorite route. I don't know how to talk. I don't know why it took me so long to get there. He's my second favorite route in this game. Zeus did nothing wrong, and here's my 584-page SAY. Honestly, yeah, he literally does pull shit like that. So Raoul is the friends with benefits route. Until it's not. Like I said in my pancake image. Raoul is very casual about love, and this frustrates Lynette to no end, because Lynette is very much a you should only, like, have sex with people that you're in love with person. So she doesn't understand why Raoul gets together with people just for sex. She's like, what do you mean? That doesn't make sense. And he's like, well, I could show you. And she's like, alright, fine. Show me. And they literally, like, hook up. They're the route where, like, it's the fastest from, like, knowing each other to just hooking up. It's kind of wild. So their route is very, like, sexually charged, I would say, compared to the other routes in this game. Very, very spicy. Very, very interesting in that regard. But, like, the big thing is just, like, learning about how, like, he's obsessed with mythology because his parents were archaeologists. He traveled around a lot as a kid. He knows basically every language under the sun, so he's also a polyglot. He really only took up acting because it sounded fun. He basically does everything in his life because he thinks it sounds fun. He's just there to vibe. He's here for a good time, not a long time. He's his own stuntman in action movies because he's actually done, like, action-type things in real life. Like, he IRL fought an alligator. He's, like, run out of, like, caves with, like, running boulders. Like, all of the cliche action movie-type shit are things he experienced while traveling with his parents. So he can just effortlessly do it in movies without even flinching. He's kind of wild like that. We find out in this route that, a lot of the movies that Lynette watched in Celestia with Aunt Minerva had Raoul as a star in them. And so Lynette gets excited to, like, watch his movies, like, with him. And there's, like... He's just kind of like, oh, okay. Like, he doesn't mind his movies, but he's always kind of wondering if there's, like, something that would be more interesting. Like, something that would actually, like, capture his attention. They stay kind of I guess, friends with benefits, in that, like, they will still hook up a couple of times in the route. And, like, Lynette realizes that her love type is Ludus, and that's probably why she keeps being drawn to the, like, casual aspect of being with Raoul. There's literally a line where she says that, like, doing it with him just kind of feels like an exercise routine, which is kind of insane. But eventually she, like, forces him to no longer have hookups with people because she really wants him to take, like, finding love seriously and, like, learning about love seriously. And also, like, puts a ban on them hooking up, too. He's just like, I can't even hook up with you. That's so ass. But he does it because he really likes talking to her and doesn't want to make her sad. Because she is one of the few, like, people in his life that he actually likes discussing mythology with. Because, I mean, she's literally Cupid. He doesn't know that. But she's literally Cupid, so whenever she offers her takes, she ends up showing that she knows a lot. And he's like, huh, I've never heard stuff like that before. And so he loves listening to what she has to say whenever she's able to share her opinions with him. They are no longer friends with benefits when this happens, basically, but there's like a whole part where he introduces her to the mythology club that he's been going to, like, meet up with every other week, and, like, has her show up and, like, have discussions with them. But then he gets a bit jealous because all of the guys there, all the other girls that have tried to join that club usually only join it for Raoul, or to get with Raoul. And then whenever they don't get with Raoul, or Raoul dumps them because he's not interested in their opinions on myth, they quit. So this club has been starved for women. So when Lynette is there, all these guys are like, oh my god, a woman! I would love to hear your takes over dinner at my house. And Raoul's like, no, she's not going with you guys. And then they have, like, a very possessive moment where he, like, pushes her up against the door of his apartment, and they, you know, it's a good scene. It's very possessive, very aggressive also. It's a very, like, carnivore take. That's, like, what I was missing in, Gil's route. I got it in Raoul's. I was very surprised. But I really like how, like, aggressive Raoul is, when it comes to, like, being with Lynette. It's really refreshing. Does he have any hot takes on Cupid that trigger her at the start? His hot take on Cupid is that he thinks that Cupid is a woman. Most of the club and, like, most iterations of Cupid talk about Cupid being a boy, and he thinks that Cupid is a woman. And the first time he's talking to her about Cupid, she mentions thinking that Cupid is a woman. Obviously, she would know. And he's like, oh, somebody agrees with me! And he gets, like, so excited about it. But, like, that's kind of his hot take. Like, the other thing, though, is that he's very obsessed with the story of, Cupid and Psyche, where the story is basically that, Cupid was supposed to fire this arrow at Psyche to make her fall in love with somebody ugly. I think because Venus told Cupid to do it? I don't entirely remember. But something happens, and Cupid ends up, like, hitting himself with his own arrow and falls in love with Psyche. And Raoul really wants to know about this story about Cupid and Psyche and, like, learn information about it outside of the initial written myths. But the thing is, Cupid doesn't remember that ever happening to her. Lynette's just like, that's interesting, because she never fell in love with Psyche. She's never been in love, period. So she doesn't really understand why this story about Cupid exists when she doesn't remember it, and she's been alive for, like, 200 years, so she's like, that's weird. And then she finds out that the story took place, like, way before she came into existence, and she's like, but how could Cupid have existed if I didn't exist then? Well. Now we're back to that question somebody asked earlier that I said was very complicated to answer. So let's get into why this story is insane. So a lot of the beginning of the route is focused on that whole, like, Raoul is very casual with romance. He doesn't want to, really fall in love with anyone at all. He's only there to learn for this movie. Actually ends up falling in love with Lynette through getting to know her and, like, spending more time with her. Yada yada, they fall in love, it's great. They go on this expedition. I'm skipping parts to, like, get to the meat of, like, what we need to know for this route, because I need you guys to know why this route is crazy. So they go on this expedition. I think it's in Greece? I don't remember. Yeah, it's Greece, actually. It's Greece. They go to Greece to go to this archaeological dig because a new shrine was discovered there, and Raul really wants to like find out like what kind of mythological stuff might be uncovered and wants to be part of it. And he gets the chance to invite a +1, so he takes Lynette. I was honestly very upset with how this was treated in the game, specifically in the localization. You might have heard me talk about this before, but I think a new translator or localizer, I guess, like took over for this portion of the route because this was incomprehensible. It was not proofread. It was like weird, like the tenses were shifting everywhere. No words were really spelled right a lot of the time. I had to use my understanding of spoken Japanese to get an idea of what was going on because the English translation at some points was just so incomprehensible, I literally did not know what was happening. So I had to use what I understood of spoken Japanese. So basically, only when Raul talked did I understand what was happening in the route. Because Lynette doesn't speak, she doesn't have a voice actress. So I had to sit there and, like, piece together Lynette's lines, figure out what they might mean, and then piece it together with Raul's spoken audio. Anyway, rough. But the gist of it is they are trapped in this underground Greek shrine for like a long time, like several days, I believe. And it's just kind of them getting through it together. That's the trapped together moment that I mentioned here. But basically they spend that time trapped together. Raul uses his survival skills to keep them alive, basically. It's very cute. They have like a lot of like moments where they encounter a manticore. He like uses pancration, which is his hobby. Pancration, which is a type of like naked wrestling. He uses pancration against a manticore, which is wild. So he fights a manticore. And then eventually they are able to make it out of this like shrine, and it's only after Lynette like kind of prays that one of the gods can like actually like rescue them. I think she specifically calls to her Aunt Minerva, and then Minerva's like, okay, I got you, and then like rescues both of them and makes it so that they can both get out. But like this is important to know that it's specifically Aunt Minerva because when they get out, they are both like injured and tired, and like it's really bad, and part of Minerva rescuing them is she brings them to Celestia. Like the two of them pass out and they get brought to Celestia, and Raul is just like, wow, this is what you look like in your goddess form, you're beautiful. And like he has found out that she is Cupid like a while before this, so he's like really excited to be in Celestia and to like see her be Cupid, and it's a very sweet moment. There's a really pretty CG involved, but here's where the route gets wild. So, Raul and Lynette are, like, talking, and they're, like, discussing how they're gonna go back to, okay, here's what happens. So, part of the lore of, like, the overarching lore of this game is that if Lynette, parentheses Cupid, falls in love with a human, and they seal it with true love's kiss, she will lose her Cupid's bow. Like, it'll fall off of her neck and go back to Celestia. So one of her big things is that she can't fall in love with a human because she doesn't want to stop being Cupid. But of course, since this is a romance game, she does fall in love with the guys, and whenever she falls in love with them and has that true love's kiss moment, the necklace always falls off. There's like a sound effect that you can hear of it falling off and disappearing. And that's it going back to Celestia, because she's no longer a goddess. She just becomes a human. So they have true love's kiss, and she loses Cupid's bow. But she's still, like, kind of in her goddess form, which is like, it makes sense, kind of, because she's, like, in Celestia. But she loses the bow as they smooch, and they're, like, going to leave, because it's like, well, okay, we're just gonna go be humans, like, back on Earth now, then. But as they are leaving, Raul gets shot with the lead and arrow. And you're just like, huh? How can he get shot with the lead and arrow? She doesn't have the bow on her. But guess who does have the bow? Good old Auntie Minerva. So, here's a little bit of context for you. One of the things that Raul does is he likes to collect paraphernalia related to mythology. He's rich, he's an actor, so he has the money to buy a lot of really expensive displays. One of the things he happens to have displayed in his house is the armor of Alexander the Great. And Raul really likes Alexander the Great. He thinks he's a cool guy. He thought that, like, all of the myths surrounding Alexander are pretty swell. when Raoul gets shot with the lead and arrow, he does not necessarily lose his love for Lynette. Because the lead and arrow has a secret ability that only Minerva knew about. And basically, he reverts to being Alexander the Great, because Raoul Aconite is the reincarnation of Alexander the Great, who Minerva was romantically involved with. So Minerva used Lynette, got her to fall in love with Raoul, gets her to bring Raoul to Celestia, shoots Raoul so he turns back into Alexander, and then steals Raoul/Alexander from Lynette, banishes Lynette out of Celestia back to Earth, and then just, like, spends all her time with Alexander the Great. Fate called and lost their lore back. It's wild, right? So a lot of the, like, last part of Lynette's route is her trying to figure out how she can get Raoul back. And she basically has to do it with the power of love, because she doesn't have access to Cupid's bow. She can't, like, reach out to any of the other gods and goddesses because she, like, can't anymore because she's immortal. And she's basically having a rough time. And she's very sad because she just wants to be with Raoul so badly. Meanwhile, Alexander the Great wants to take revenge on humanity for how they treated him in the war. And Minerva's like, yes, king, whatever you say. I am your servant. I'll literally do whatever you ask. I will create storms. I will destroy the entire planet if that's what you wish. Because she's down bad, down horrendous for this man. But he doesn't really seem to care about her in the way that she cares about him, even though she claims that they were in love. Eventually, there's, like, this big confrontation near the ocean where Lynette manages to, like, summon Cupid's bow, and it's, like, straining all of her energy to try and fire it because she's not supposed to be Cupid anymore. But she loves Raoul so much that she's trying to, like, hit him with the golden arrow. Meanwhile, like, we find out that Alexander actually hates Minerva, or, like, realizes that she is the reason why he failed initially, because she tried to cure him with, like, some elixir that she made, because she's the goddess of, like, wisdom and stuff, so she tried to, like, make something that would cure him so he wouldn't die, but it actually, like, gives him an illness and, like, kills him. Like, it basically poisons him. And so he gets, like, fucking pissed at her and is just like, you're the whole reason I failed in the first place. Why would I love you? And she's just like, oh, but when you scorned me, I love you more. Weird. Weird angle. Really weird plot twist here. But eventually Lynette manages to, like, get him to stop, being cold to her and, like, being a freak just long enough to shoot him with the gold arrow, and it brings Raoul back. And they're able to, like, hug and be together. And Minerva gets apprehended and sent to, Celestia jail. Anyway, route's insane. Like, this happened in the sequel game too, but the first part of Raoul's routes are always, like, super normal, and it's just like, oh, what do you do if you have a frivolous guy who doesn't really believe in love, and then you fall in love with your friend with benefits? And then it suddenly turns into, what if the guy that you love is secretly the reincarnation of Alexander the Great? And, like, what if your aunt was, like, secretly in love with Alexander the Great and uses you and your powers to, like, get him back? Do they stay there or go back to Earth? They stay on Earth. They came back to Earth during this whole debacle because, like I said, Alexander the Great wanted to take revenge on Earth. So, they were on Earth to begin with, and, like, Lynette got banished to Earth anyway because she's fully human now. She's not Cupid anymore. So, they just stay on Earth together and are, like, just happy humans. He's back to being Raoul. There's no danger of him becoming Alexander again. So, just a very weird plot point overall. I liked the drama of it, but I was so shocked when it happened. I was like, huh? My heart, like, dropped into my stomach when he got hit with the lead and arrow, because I thought the whole drama was going to be that he loses all of the love that he built for her over time. Because we know that he started out not really caring about romance. So if he got hit with the lead and arrow and was gonna, like, no longer love her, I was like, that sucks. That sucks. Why would you do that, Aunt Minerva? But it's because that reverted him back to his past self. I was just like, that's a bit of a weird... It's a bit of a weird thing to have the lead and arrow be able to do. But apparently it's only in very specific circumstances. But also, we find out during Minerva's evil monologue during this scene that, there have been other Cupids before Lynette. So, like, Cupid is a title that is passed from god to god. Lesser god to lesser god, I should say, because Lynette is considered a lesser god in Celestia. Cupid is considered lesser than the other gods. Like the Deconsentes, which is the most powerful 12 gods, she's considered lesser than them. So any god that is considered a lesser god, their role is like a title that gets passed from god to god. So sometimes Cupid has been a boy, and sometimes Cupid has been a girl. In this particular instance, Cupid is a girl. But in the story of Cupid and Psyche, that was about one of the older Cupids who was a boy. So to go back to that question you asked me, yeah, so the story that they were talking about was about one of the older Cupids, not the current Cupid. There were no rumors being spread about the current Cupid because this was after Celestia had a ban on gods going to the human world. Crazy, right? Certainly the route of all time. But as a love interest, though, Raoul is like a really good guy. The fact that the end of his route was kind of ruined with the whole Alexander the Great plot was a bit weird. But I did still like it. I thought for like a plot point, the drama was really fun to like read through and like experience, but as somebody who really liked the initial part, it felt like it was two different stories. Like, I felt like starting from them getting trapped in the shrine onward, I was basically reading an entirely different, like, Otome game. I was like, who? But that's one of the reasons why Raoul is one of the routes you do last, because his route has so much, like, fantasy, like, heavy plot stuff to it. At least the hook of the lead and arrow subverted your expectation. This is true. We didn't really know that much about the lead and arrow until this route in particular. Do we go crazier? Hint? Alright, and then the last of the main Parasite 5. The thieving parasite Alan Melville. He's Stimpy. Stinky, smelly, no good man. He just looks like he smells of really heavy incense. Bleh. Stimpy. Stimpy, yucky, evil man. So the whole reason he is called the thieving parasite, and the reputation that he has, is that he only falls in love with women who are already in love, specifically in love with somebody else. So he only is attracted to women who love like other guys. Then he is attracted to them. He will actively flirt with and charm these women to the point where they will abandon their boyfriends to try and hook up with him, but then he dumps them because they're no longer in love with someone else. He does not like it when the love is aimed at him. The minute that they start saying that they love him more than they love their boyfriends, he's like, oh, huh, that kind of sucks. Anyway, bye. He'll just, like, leave that situation. And yes, he is very much actively a homewrecker. He will ruin relationships, not really intentionally, because he just wants to feed on the dreams of people in love. Because, yeah. The common route reveals very openly that he is an incubus. He's an incubus. He's a demon. So yeah, he runs a pillow store. I forgot to include that on this slide, but he runs a pillow shop, and part of being in the pillow shop, and part of what he does as an incubus, is he brings in women who are, like, having trouble sleeping, and are also, like, in love with their boyfriends. Uses hypnosis to make them fall asleep, and then he goes and he eats the dreams that they have of like them being with their partners. Like, he eats the naughty dreams, basically. Here is your pillow princess. literally true. So yeah, that's kind of like his whole shtick as an incubus. He refers to Lynette as our honey because the whole idea is like sharing. Literally, he says it in English, our honey. Like, he says our because it's the idea of, like, sharing her with somebody else. One of his big things is getting Lynette to fall in love with one of the other guys. One of the other parasites. Our. Yeah, you guys would like him because he's always like, our. That's our VTuber. He likes sharing. Communism meme has to have happened with this guy. I don't know if it has, but if it hasn't, I need to make it. Because I like him a lot. I like it a lot. That's so silly. Okay. But yeah, it's revealed on the common route that he's an incubus, so that's not really even a spoiler for his actual route. You'd think it would be, but it's not. They, like, openly state that he's an incubus. Okay. So where do I start with this guy? When you choose to pursue Alan, he spends most of the time trying to get you to fall in love with somebody else. Like, he wants to pair you with the other guys. There's even literally a scene where he pretends to be Gil and, like, uses Gil's voice to try and, like, charm Lynette. And Lynette's just like, this is weird, but I'm not really attracted to Gil. So this is a very weird situation for me. Does he even try to homewreck when we're on others' routes? No. He makes comments like, oh, I can tell that you're actually in love with somebody now. Your dreams would probably be particularly delectable. And she's just like, can you leave, please? Like, she doesn't really fall for it. She's, like, constantly exasperated with him. And honestly, as she should be. He's annoying. He's annoying and he's stinky. I think if anything, the person who gets, like, home-wrecked the most is, like, Gil. You guys are joking about NTR, but, like, I think Gil gets NTR'd the most. Gil shows up in a lot of the other routes, and the boys will either be jealous of Gil's connection to Lynette, or Gil will confess to the love interest to the love interest. BL? No. Gil will confess to Lynette and cause the love interest to want to make their move, because they're like, no, you can't do that, Gil, she's mine. Back off. BL suddenly? My bad. I don't know how to talk. Anyway. This route sounds like pulling teeth. It's not for the reason you think. So you would think that because Alan acts like this, that he's a bit of a womanizer, a bit of a player, right? He's not, though. Not really. There's, like, a situation where, I forget specifically what happens. I think Lynette needs to, like, she wants to shoot her arrow, I think, at Alan to get him to fall in love with, like, a random girl so that he'll, like, stop wanting to be a thieving parasite. Because no matter what she does, he is the one who she literally cannot fix. And she gets really frustrated with that and just wants to shoot her arrow and get it over with. But then something happens and she ends up hurting herself with the arrow. I think she pricks herself with it, like what happens with Cupid and Psyche. And she ends up falling in love with Alan. And Alan's just like, oh shit, because he doesn't want that. Specifically, he has to tell her that even if she did fire the arrow at him, because he is an incubus, it probably would have killed him, because that's a lot of, like, holy energy, and he's, like, a demon. So if she managed to hit him with the arrow, it would have killed him. So maybe it's for the best that he didn't get hit, but also, whoopsies. Now she's in love with him for a month. And she basically, like, begs him to, like, date her for that month. Because at least this way he won't be feeding on random girls' dreams and ruining people's relationships. Because now he can just focus on eating her dreams. And he's like, huh, the dreams of a goddess, that could be really delectable. So he goes into her dream and is trying to see who she's in love with. And, like, even though she's technically supposed to be in love with him right now because of the effects of the arrow, the person in her dream is, like, formless. But he recognizes the place that they are in, and it, like, freaks him out. I don't really know how else to explain this route without getting into the really weird fucky-wucky stuff, so I guess we're gonna get into the fucky-wucky stuff now. Where do I even begin with this? 1 second. Okay, so the month goes by in this route where Lynette is, like, hopelessly in love with Alan, and Alan is kind of being very lukewarm towards her. He's not really discouraging her. He has switched from using our honey to calling her my honey. which is a nice change. But other than that, he's not really, like, actively reciprocating her feelings. They don't really kiss. They don't really embrace. They aren't really acting much like a couple. Like, he accepts all of her advances, kind of, but doesn't really, like, actively reciprocate. And a lot of the route is very boring for this reason. Or at the very least, I got bored. So there's eventually a point on the last day of the 30 days where she is enchanted by the bow, where she, like, asks him to go for a walk on the beach alongside the ocean. And they're, like, walking together. They're having, like, a little chat about how she kind of doesn't want the effects of the arrow to wear off because she wants to, like, stay in love with him. And he's just kind of, like, half listening. And then it reaches the point where she goes to confess to him, like, genuinely. And for lack of a better term, he stabs her in the chest and kills her. He uses a enchanted, with, like, dark magic knife to kill her and extract her soul. So he extracts, Cupid's soul from her body. Oh, I should say, he already knows that she's Cupid. So all that matters is that, like, he eventually reveals himself to her as being an incubus, and that's why she was trying to cure him. But anyway, he takes her soul out of her body. Goes back to the underworld, and he's considered a high-ranking demon. Oh, also, you find out in this route that Lynette's roommate was a succubus. The girl that I haven't shown you the picture of yet, she's a succubus. They were working together because their goal was to try and get Lynette to fall in love with a human, but because in this route Lynette didn't fall in love with a human and instead fell in love with Alan, their plan failed. Anyway, so now he's in the underworld and he is holding on to Lynette's soul, and all of the other demons are trying to, like, steal it from him because a god's soul is, like, really, really powerful, and if you have it, or, like, eat it specifically, you would probably become a very, very powerful demon. But he's, like, very protective and is like, you can't have this. And he does a lot of research and like, goes into this, like, really ancient forbidden book to figure out how to force a soul to reincarnate. And he takes, like, the essence of her soul and makes her reincarnate as a full human. Basically, like, doesn't want her to be associated with the gods in any way. Just, like, he wants her to live life as a human. That's what he wants for her more than anything else. What is the POV during all this? It's his, basically. I don't think we see internal narration during this part. No, I think we do, actually. I lied. It's his POV. We get a lot of his POV in this route for this reason. Like, there's just a whole point where Lynette is, like, not even the main character anymore, and it's just all Alan. And all Alan, like, observing her. We don't really get back into Lynette's POV until she's, like, closer to, like, her canon age. Is he getting lovey-dovey at all, or is this more making her human for making her human? I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. There's a lot more to unpack. I'm trying to explain this in as close to the right order as I can. It's okay. Her canon age, yes. So, as a goddess, she's, like, over 200. Bodily, when she's in Lost York, she's bodily, like, 18 when she first shows up there, and then she stays there for, like, 7 years. So then she's 18 plus 7. So, like, mid-20s. But when he makes her reincarnate, she's back to being a baby. Like a human baby. She has, like, a normal human family, normal human life. Still ends up with the name Lynette Mirror, through circumstances. And the thing about her soul reincarnating is because she was still, like, the soul of a goddess, she still ends up having all of her goddess-like traits, eventually. The older she gets, the closer she gets to the age her body was when she died, the closer she gets to acting like Cupid. Like, even though genetically she was supposed to have, like, more human appearances, he mentions that she's still, like, looking physically like Cupid as she gets older. Like, her hair turns pink, her eyes change to blue. Like, she grows up to look like regular Cupid, basically. Even though, like, time has passed since she initially existed on Earth as Lynette Mirror. But she's, like, Lynette Mirror 2, basically. Of course, she has no memory of being Cupid, and she has no memory of, like, her relationship with Alan or anything. She's just like a person. But Alan has manifested in front of her as like a guardian angel type figure, parentheses, incubus. They made these like charm bracelets back before he killed her that like he ends up enchanting with like a special protective magic that will stop her from being pursued by demons. Since her soul is still really powerful and really desirable, and she's a human and doesn't have Cupid's bow, she can't protect herself, so he is like looking out for her and protecting her and has her wear that bracelet so that she won't be pursued by demons or eaten by demons or taken to the underworld or anything like that. Various circumstances ensue where like she's like wondering about this guardian angel figure that was present in her life as she's going through college. She becomes friends with Clarice again in college because Clarice is the roommate, by the way, because Alan asks Clarice to help look after her once more. So like she's still friends with Clarice, but she makes friends with Gil and Raoul's like nephews respectively, like nephew slash like second nephew or whatever. It's like a weird like relationship thing, but basically it's implied that all of the other love interests are like older and still alive and probably remember her and like are probably super fucking sad that she died, but she's not allowed to meet them because timey-wimey shenanigans. Yeah, going through college again, ironically still studying romantic psychology because she just can't help it. She's just really interested in it. Crazy. Weird how that works. Basically, despite Alan's best efforts, he cannot stop her from her nature as Cupid. And it eventually does, like, reach a point. I'm gonna skip over some stuff that's, like, kind of silly and not necessary. It does reach a point where she remembers that she was Cupid again. And she's like, why did you kill me? Like, why did you stab me? I don't understand why you had to do that. And he doesn't really want to answer because he feels like this was his responsibility and that he failed her. I'm trying to remember specifically how this part happens, but there is a part where he kind of gets, like, injured. And, like, she thinks that he died and gets really upset, but he didn't die. He just, like, teleported to the underworld so that he could recover because he heals faster in the underworld than he does in the human world. So he ends up being fine. But basically, like, Clarice kind of has to be the one to explain a little bit about what Alan went through and, like, why he does the things that he does. And Lynette is like, okay, I have to figure this out for myself. So she goes to Celestia and she does research and she discovers heaven. We basically discover, and it's hinted a little bit in the game up to this point, like there are allusions to the fact that Alan was a fallen angel, and there are allusions to the dreams that Lynette has about being in this mysterious place with a person that she can't really see, but like feels innately familiar to her. And we discover, like they have like this scene when they are in their fake dating, not really romantically involved phase, where Lynette wants to buy them 2 matching mugs that have these 2 matching angels on them. Yeah, I almost said fallen angel. Oops, my bad. I didn't want to spoil that part just yet. But yeah, so we discover that, well, alright, lore-based reason first. Heaven is where all of the angels live. And angels do not have voices, they do not have names, they just kind of exist. Heaven is a form of paradise for them. Like, they just kind of hang out and vibe. They are asked sometimes to do tasks for the gods, specifically the deconsentes. But for the most part, they just kind of, like, hang out and have a good time. In this particular story, there are 2 angels who are a fated pair. They are constantly together. These little angels are always holding hands. They cannot communicate with words, but they communicate with actions, gestures, expressions. And they develop their own silent little language between the 2 of them. In heaven, it's just those 2. They very deeply care about one another. And then there comes a day where the gods, I believe specifically Mercury decides this, but Mercury decides that one of the angels in that pair should become a god. And then Jupiter, who is currently the Lord God, intervenes and says, what if we make her Cupid? And Mercury says, okay, we can do that. And they enter heaven. They take this angel away from her fated partner, and they turn her into Cupid. But the way that you have to do that is you have to make them forget that they were ever an angel, and you basically kind of rework their entire soul so that their entire being is Cupid. But because you are reworking an angel's soul, and you are making them a divine figure when they are not really meant to be a divine figure, it shortens their lifespan. Most lesser gods are not immortal. Most lesser gods do have a limited lifespan. We discover that Lynette, her existence as that particular soul, was close to dying. Like, she was going to die no matter what. Alan being her fated partner, because he tries to go after her when she is taken from him, but Mercury pushes him away, and Alan tries to fight, and then because he tries to fight, and he tries to, like, fight his way out of heaven to get back to Lynette, he gets pushed out of heaven, and he becomes a fallen angel. He is the only one that remembers this life that they had as the paired angels. And he spends the entirety of his existence trying to protect the soul that is Lynette, the soul that became Lynette. He wants to protect her and, like, keep her safe and make sure that she won't die. Basically. So they are soulmates. Do you remember the plate of pancakes that said soulmates on it? That's Alan. His love type is mania. Mania is, not really obsession. It's not the same as being the obsessed parasite, but, like, he's, like, very dedicated to the person that he loves. He's willing to put his entire life on the line to make sure that they will be happy above all else. And that's his love type. Which is meant to be surprising, because he's the thieving parasite and seems to not really care about romance. And you would think that Mania would belong to Raoul, because of Raoul's obsession with mythology, but they are actually swapped. Very interesting. Anyways, but Lynette only remembers all of this when she enters heaven, and, like, gets to see heaven for herself and comes to understand who she was meant to be. Jupiter, upon realizing that her soul is, like, back in Celestia and that she's Cupid again, insists that the only way to protect her, to, like, ensure that she won't die, is if he makes her Juno. Because Juno, the goddess of marriage, is still missing. So he says that he will marry Lynette and, like, make her into Juno, and she kind of resists this because she wants to go back to Alan. Because at that point she's realized that she loves Alan with or without being struck by the arrow. And Alan fights his way back into heaven into Celestia to get her back. And he, like, fights with Jupiter to, like, get Lynette back from him. And they have this, like, big epic fight scene. And in the end, he does end up, like, really injured still. But he does save her, and they fall to Earth together. She also gives up her godhood in order to be with him. Like, she gives up the bow, she gives up everything so that she can be with Alan, and she ends up becoming a fallen angel as well in the true ending. Or, like, specifically, she becomes, like, a lesser demon. They never clarify what kind of demon she is in this ending, just that she has, like, demon wings and a little demon tail. It's very cute. But they end up being happy together in the end, because they are a fated pair, and fated pairs always find their way back together. This version of him seems like an entirely different person from how he's portrayed in the first half. That's what I'm saying. Okay, here's the thing. I normally love soulmates. I normally love these kinds of stories. But I think that because he is so passive, he's also very, like, pitiful towards himself. He's constantly like, oh, I shouldn't be the one to be with her. I am full of baggage. I am a corrupted demon now. She deserves to only be with, like, pure good people, and I am not pure, and I am not good. And I'm just like, bro, shut the fuck up. She loves you, and you're literally soulmates. He has a lot of self-loathing, and I hated, especially because a lot of the game, for, like, that last half focuses on his POV. We spend so much time with him kicking himself and being like, I don't deserve to be with her. I have to watch her from a distance. I have to make sure she properly falls in love with a human and doesn't have to be Cupid anymore. It can't be me. And I'm just like, but it literally could. You've never once stopped to ask what she wants. And that's my least favorite thing with routes like this. Why don't you just figure out what she wants? It doesn't matter if you think that that's bad for her. At this point, it should be about what she wants to do. If she wants to be with you. And if that's what she wants, let her do it. Hello? So that part frustrated me. I really hate when characters, like, assume that they know best for somebody. I'm just like, please shut up, Alan. You don't know what she wants. Getting smacked by Jesus hurts. I guess I get what you mean. I'm sure he didn't want her to become a fallen angel because it would probably be, like, a rough experience, but... The thing is, she would have him to, like, help her through it, and they would be able to be there for each other. I just thought it was very silly. Anyways. It still works out in the end, but it's like a very slow process, and I just wish that he would have actually, like, listened to her and, like, trusted her a bit more. He assumes that he knows what's best and just, like, constantly makes decisions for her, including stabbing her to force her soul to reincarnate, and I just think that that's kind of ridiculous. Like, maybe you should have just talked to the woman. Maybe if you talked to the woman, you would get what you want, maybe. I don't know. Weird. Weird route. Weird choices. But, like, I do like the soulmate aspect of it, and I do think that the two of them can be very sweet together. But he was also so passive as a love interest even before we get to the stabby. But, like, it was such a nothing route, because literally nothing happens. The one cute moment that I remember from their route before the stabby and, like, the reincarnation shenanigans is that he talks about how he finds boba tea to be the only human food he likes consuming, because he's an incubus, he doesn't have to eat human food, he eats dreams. He ends up really liking boba tea, but he calls it sour, because whenever he saw people drinking boba, he always saw the way their cheeks sucked in when they were sucking the boba pearls and, like on the boba straw. He thought that they were making that face because that's the same face that people make when they eat lemons. And because he's an incubus, he can't really taste. So his assumption is that, when they eat boba, they're like, experiencing that sour sensation of eating a lemon, and he's like, oh, okay. So when he drinks boba, even though it's a sweet drink, he thinks that sweetness is sour. So anytime he eats something, he eats a sweet dream, he refers to it as a sour dream. And Lynette's just like, I don't know how to correct him. This is too cute. I don't know if I can fix this. It's adorable. And I have to admit that is pretty cute. I like the gap moe. I don't know. It's a little bit silly. It's a little goofy. That's like the one cute thing that I remember from that part of the route. All the rest of the cute stuff happens near the end of the route. There's like a whole lot of nothing for like a majority of this route. And then we get, like, something at the end, and then, like, the boba scene. His route was the most surprising to me, because I expected him to be the, like, flirty one. Who's, like, the womanizer that you have to try and convince that, like, you're worth it. Like, you're different. You are the reason that he should break the pattern of, like, flirting with a bunch of women. And I either like those routes or hate those routes, depending on the character. But the fact that his route was so nothing kind of disappointed me. It was very plot-heavy. It wasn't really a lot of, like, romance between him and Lynette, and I think that might be why I didn't like it. Because compared to Raoul, where you get a lot of scenes with Raoul, and, like, being with him romantically, I felt like we got nothing for Alan. Like, for Raoul, you get tons of romantic time with him in the beginning, and then the end of his route is all plot. For Alan, you get, like, no time with him romantically in the beginning, and then at the end, you get all plot, but it's a very romantic plot. Because he's fighting for you. He's trying to be your white knight despite being a dark demon, you know? I think that's kind of neat. But I don't know. It's a very, like, plot-heavy route. And I feel like there wasn't enough romantic reward. So, yeah. As for his voice actor, Makoto Furukawa has been in a lot of otome games in recent days. He's not always playing the same character type. I feel like Furumako usually plays like more softy gentle boy types than characters like Alan, but he did a pretty good job. I really liked his, like, take on the sleazeball type of voice. Like those very smooth, our honey. Like, it made me annoyed in a good way. I like it when a voice actor can bring out that kind of slime and make me be like, oh, I hate you, but I think you're a good character, but I hate you. I think he did a really good job. Good delivery. Oh, I don't think I mentioned it. Oh, wait, yes I did. But anyway, Takagashiro for Raoul. Very lighthearted, like, bouncy, kind of sing-songy tone of voice. It's very light, very cute. It fits the playful vibe that Raoul has. Also, he says things like, ciao, and, like, that sort of thing. I love that. Very cute. Okay. So that is the main Parasite 5. It only took me over 2 hours to explain the love interests. Very cool. Go me. But now we're going to talk about the side characters, because we need to understand a little bit about the side characters before I can teach you about the secret route. Claris Tia. I'm sure you guys have been waiting for me to show you what she looks like. This is Lynette's college bestie, who joins Cupid Corp, but she specifically works in the tech department. Like, she helps develop the algorithm that the company uses to determine people's love types. She helps develop the whole romance, love type test and things like that. She's gorgeous. No Yuri route. You're so right. I wish there was a Yuri route, because honestly, Claris flirts with Lynette so often, and Lynette constantly is like, wow, Claris is so pretty. Like, they should have been Yuri. They should have been Yuri, but alas, we live in a society. And I'm very sad about it. Anyways. Claris is also a girl boss, but I put parentheses experienced because she's more experienced than Lynette is. I think Claris just has overall more experience as, like, an individual. And I think that that's important to point out for her, because she's experienced. Girl, like, knows a lot about the world. This is the girl that's a succubus? Yes. She partners with Alan, this guy, and the two of them are on Earth with the intention of getting Lynette to fall in love with a human. Because if she falls in love with a human, she becomes a human, and no longer has to worry about her soul, like, disappearing sooner than it should. Because she'll just be, like, a human and gets to live, like, an ordinary human life and be away from the gods. I forgot to say, because of what happened with, Alan and being kicked out of heaven and becoming a fallen angel, he fucking hates Celestia. He hates the gods. He thinks they suck. Because it's like, why would they take her away from me and force her to become a goddess, even though it would kill her? That's so fucked up. I hate God. And I'm just like, honestly, fair. Why is Claris invested in this plan? I understand Alan, but why her? Okay, so Claris is the person who found Alan when he first fell and helped him become a demon. Claris has been a demon much longer than Alan has. It's implied that she's kind of like his guardian slash, like, big sister slash kind of a mother figure when he's in hell, and is the one who, like, kind of teaches him and supports him and, like, makes sure that he can get through hell despite being a fallen angel. And so they just have, like, that kind of a relationship with each other, and she wants to help Alan succeed, basically. Oh no, she's Hellspawn and Mommy. Maybe a little bit. She has maybe a little bit. Anyway, Claris is my girl boss and I love her. She's very good, but that's kind of why she's invested. She wants to make Alan happy. And then also when she decides to be the one who directly looks after Lynette, because the reason Alan asked her is because she's woman, and that means woman can room with woman. But then Claris just actually gets invested in how sweet Lynette is as a person, and, like, really just wants her to be happy. That's the main reason she cares about this plot. She wants Lynette to be happy and doesn't want her to disappear. Because there's a chance that she will disappear within, like, a year if they don't get her to find love. and she doesn't want to lose her, because she bonded with her for, like, 4 years. Technically a bit longer, like 5-6 years. So she wants Lynette to be happy. Is all. And to also fulfill her promise to Alan. So she roomed with Lynette and Gil in school. She and Lynette stayed in that apartment, even though it was initially Gil's first, and Gil was the one who moved out, because he was like, I don't think I should stay in an apartment with 2 women once I graduate from college. So he moved out and got his own place. And let Lynette and Claris stay in that one because it was close to campus. And they still live there even after they've like graduated and have started working full-time at Cupid Corp. They like it there. It's very much decorated to be like a girl's apartment now. For the longest time, Lynette thought that Gil's crush was on Claris and that his unrequited love was Claris. But Claris can't stand Gil. Gil is the exact kind of person that drives her crazy. However, we do find out in, was it in Gil's route? It might have been. But I think we find out specifically in Alan's route that Claris had actually manipulated Gil by, like, influencing his dreams to make him dream of Lynette. And that's kind of why he realized he had feelings for Lynette, because he kept having those kinds of dreams about her, if you catch my drift. She never went for Gil. Claris, I mean. But she made sure that he would start getting feelings for Lynette because she was like, well, he's a human, he's close by. I guess it would be the easiest option if we need to get Lynette paired with somebody. I don't like him, but hey, man's present. Might as well find a use. But then Gil was like, oh, I can't do it. I like her so much, but also, I can't do it. And Claris is just like, God, you are such a weak little man. And she gets so frustrated with him. They get along okay, but they're clearly just, like, friends because they both like Lynette. Basically. So Claris's love type is Ludus. This is told to us after, Lynette scores Ludus, if you're, like, going down the Raoul route. Claris is like, oh, you got the same love type as me. I'm also Ludus. Which basically means, you know, doesn't take love very seriously. She's, like, always kind of playing with a new guy. She, like, has a different guy on her arm every other, like, week. Lynette has, like, never seen her stay with the same guy longer than, like, a month. But Claris will, like, collect gifts from these guys. She'll often be going out to stay at that new boy's apartment. So she doesn't always stay at home during the night. Lynette will usually be by herself while Claris is off, doing things. And basically, she just really wants Lynette to find a boyfriend. Claris doesn't want to necessarily babysit her forever, despite adoring her. It's just like, girl, I love you, but please, find a man. I want to move out. She just wants, Lynette to be happy and, like, finally get a boyfriend. Because if Lynette moves out of the apartment, then Claris can move out of the apartment, and they can, like... Well, specifically, Claris wants to go back to the underworld, because she's kind of getting sick of the human world. You don't know that in most of the other routes, though. It just seems like Claris wants to, like, leave so she can travel and not have to worry about if Lynette's gonna be okay. But she's a girl boss. I love her. She also gets so tired of the other Parasite 5. When she asks Lynette which of the Parasite 5 she's into, she's constantly like, him? Are you sure? Like, there's no right answer when it comes to answering about the Parasite 5. Because Claris will remind you that they all suck. And Lynette's just like, yeah, well, I mean, I have to make it work somehow. My job is to make sure that they can find somebody they fall in love with. And Claris is just like, girl, are you sure? Are you really sure? And I love that Claris is always there for that, like, healthy reality check. Claris doesn't really play a huge part in the routes besides being, like, the bestie who Lynette will sometimes confide in. But, like, every time she shows up, it's a delight. I love her. And, like, just look at how pretty she is. She's literally standing in the most, like, girl boss pose. She's literally doing the, like, nail painting emoji type pose. She's always serving. And you know exactly what she's serving. Anyways. I love her. Claris is a really good example of the, like, female best friend character trope, personally. I usually like the female best friends, but I think that Claris does a really good job of being, like, sassy, really tired of everyone's shit really easily, and Lynette also is good at holding her back, just like how Claris is good at holding Lynette back. It's a very balanced friendship, and I really like that dynamic for the two of them. It feels more equal. Because sometimes with the female best friend, it feels like that friend always tries to be the more experienced and, like, talks down to the heroine. But Claris is like, look, I respect your decisions, but also, are you sure about that? And Lynette's just like, well, are you sure about the current guy you're seeing? And it's very cute. When Claris rejects Lynette's options, that would be the perfect time to start the Claris route. I know. I understand you guys wanted a Claris route. I wanted a Claris route. I was like, I don't care if it counted as a bad ending. Let me be with Claris. Claris would take care of me. Claris knows what I like. But Claris is very much into guys. I don't think Claris would ever be with a woman, is the problem. Lynette, it could go either way because she's literally like the goddess of love, so she could probably swing for a girl if she wanted to. But Claris just seems very boy crazy. I don't know if Claris would ever look at a woman like that. Okay, quick pause so that I can drink water and recover my voice a bit. I'm crazy. I'm goofy. I'm crazy. I love Cupid Parasite. Can you believe I still have so much more to go? Oh my god, guys. Lynette is a K-pop fan, Claris is a Stray Kids fan. I don't know what that means, because I don't really know that much about K-pop, but sure. We'll go with that. Even noodles went straight and get wet or something. Holy moly! That's crazy. That's crazy. That's crazy. Anyway. Sorry, that took me out. Anyway. Owen Harriet. So this is Shelby's personal assistant. Remember when I was talking about how Shelby had like a proxy kind of like serving for him when it came to the matchmaking stuff? That's Owen. So Shelby's personal assistant, he'll like keep his schedule and handles a lot of admin tasks. You find out in Shelby's route that Owen actually isn't given that much to do because Shelby insists on doing a lot of things himself, but Owen still does his best to help him and like really tries hard as his assistant. He's the representative for Ms. S. He'll report the results of dates, and whenever he'll like be texting Shelby live during the dates to be like, the date is doing this, how would you respond? And Shelby will like send his response and Owen will like follow it to the letter, even if it's like obviously bad for the date. He is a very awkward and clumsy guy secretly. Like, he looks very put together, but he's actually very awkward, very blunt, very clumsy. But he tries to act more polite and upper class than he actually is. In Shelby's route, he gets manipulated by Mars because you find out that all of the deconsentes have the ability of like minor mind control, like minor brainwashing and like manipulation. So Mars manipulates Owen and like makes Owen work for him and like sabotage or like try to sabotage Cupid Corp, which like really stresses Owen out because he doesn't really want to betray the company, but Mars takes advantage of Owen's insecurity regarding his like upbringing and how Shelby just seems to like do everything effortlessly while Owen had to work really hard to get to where he is. And it causes Owen to kind of have a like actual mental breakdown where he like almost hurts Lynette. There's like this really cool CG in the game where Shelby like points a gun at Owen and is like, "Don't you dare hurt her. But you're not acting like yourself, Owen." And I'm just like, "Oh, he's so cool, Shelby." But yeah, Owen has it rough in that route. But that's where you find out that he was like lower class upbringing. Like, the suit that he's wearing there is the most high-quality suit that Owen has in his possession. He's, like, that kind of poor. But he works really hard to, like, climb the ranks and, like, get to that personal assistant role. But then, like, he gets stressed out because Shelby asks him to do a lot of really dumb shit, including being his representative on those dates. Like, that sort of thing stressed him the hell out because, like, being representative means that he couldn't date. Owen wanted to find a partner for himself. He's enrolled as a member at Cupid Corp, but he had to cancel his membership to focus on being the proxy for Ms. S. And, like, that caused him a lot of stress because he just wanted to find love, man. Let this man live. That said, he is not actually a dateable character. Despite the fact that he serves as a proxy and you talk to him during the common route whenever it comes to pursuing the Prestige Parasite or Ms. S, you cannot date Owen. There is no ending where you date Owen in the base game. But in Ryuki's route, do you guys remember Ryuki? That was forever ago. But in Ryuki's route, he gets paired with one of Lynette's clients, Melanie. Lynette constantly says that the two of them are like 100% romantically compatible. Like, Owen is a little bit of a dork and a little bit, silly, but he gets along with Melanie, who is very, very shy and very sweet, and also very patient. The two of them have a lot of the same interests. They pair up because they both end up wearing, our Yuki clothing, and they, like, notice it on each other, and that, like, makes them appear more attractive to the other person. Ryuki and Lynette stay, like, really invested in them as a couple because of the fact that they're wearing those outfits. It's very cute. They have a cute relationship. You learn a little bit more about them in the sequel game, too, in Ryuki's route. Like, how they're doing. And it's cute. But that's, like, the only confirmed, like, pairing for Owen in, Cupid Parasite. He and Lynette get along really well. Whenever she runs into him in the routes, like, they have, like, very, like, nice conversations that are pretty casual. Owen speaks very formally, at work, but he will occasionally speak a little bit more casually with Lynette, whenever they run into each other. I think especially in the Shelby route, they start, like, getting along a bit more, but as Owen gets more stressed out because of the strain of being manipulated by Mars, like, she notices that Owen's getting kind of, like, spacey and forgetful, and that's kind of what makes her suspicious of the fact that Owen might be, betraying Shelby. She doesn't realize that it's because of her dad's manipulation until later, though. But Owen's a really cute guy. Honestly, at first when I played the game, before I went down Shelby's route, I was kind of like, Shelby and Owen? Question mark? Bi flag? Question mark? I had that moment. I had that thought in my head. But after playing Shelby's route, I saw that it probably wouldn't work out for them romantically. If I like pursued the shipping, I would probably have to like hardcore justify it. But in the end, I couldn't stick with it. But you know, they still have like a really close friendship that I think Shelby at least very much values. Owen has that like inner resentment that Mars could take advantage of, so I don't know if it's exactly the same for Owen, but it is what it is. At the end of the route, by the way, Shelby's route, I mean, Owen gets fired because he almost, like, shot Lynette and Shelby. So he gets fired, or well, not really fired, but he, like, insists that he leaves because he thinks the only way to atone is by quitting. And it actually upsets Shelby because Shelby wanted him to stay. But Lynette ends up taking Owen's job and becomes Shelby's personal assistant instead. So I guess in the end, she did kind of get a promotion, just not a promotion in the sector of the company that she wanted. That ends up being a point of discussion in the sequel game route for Shelby. Anyway, that's Owen. He's very cute. Venus and Mars. So this picture of Venus is actually when she's in her human form. I couldn't find a clean, full-body sprite of what she looks like as Venus, unfortunately. But she's very pretty. Let me see if I can find, like, a random image of her and just use that instead. One second. Because I want you to see how pretty she is. Of course, I'm getting, like, every other character. What the frick? Show me Venus. Wow, that's crazy. Why is literally nobody talking about how pretty Venus is? Alright, whatever. I guess I can't find it. Fine. Be that way. Crazy. We stand Mars in this chat. Look, Mars has a pretty cool design, I won't lie. Okay. So anyway, Venus. The design on screen is what she looks like when she disguises herself as a human. As a human, she calls herself Catherine Spade. So just, the person on screen is Catherine, but it's also Venus. Okay? Okay. Venus is a bimbo. Bimbo, but parentheses positive. She's like a really healthy, I guess, bimbo. Like, she's smarter than she looks, but she also just chooses not to care about things and just wants to, like, vibe. Like, she understands what's going on, she knows the score, but she's just busy being pretty and, like, specifically, like, gushing over how, muscular Mars is. That's all she cares about. That's her focus. She's like, I'm good. She's very confident because she is the representation of beauty, but that also leads to her being egotistical. She basically thinks that the world should revolve around her, and that because she is naturally the prettiest goddess, that every man would fall for her instantly, type of deal. She considers herself to be, like, perfect. Like, the perfect woman. Which, like, to be fair, yeah, she is. She's very pretty. But, like, the egotisticalness tends to come out in some of the routes where she'll, like, cause problems, like, because she is inconvenienced, even if it also ends up affecting, like, Cupid and stuff. I'm trying to remember which route it's in. I think it's Ryuki's, or it might have also been in Shelby's, but there's, like, a moment where she disguises herself as Catherine Spade, because she has a fight with Mars, and she just wants to get paired up with a human to, like, make Mars jealous. Nothing really happens with that, I believe. Like, it doesn't get super far, but she's just, like, doing it because she wants to experience what, Lynette's matchmaking skills are like when she's not using Cupid's bow. And when talking to Cupid, she calls her Eros. Eros is the, I believe that's the Greek name? Or is it the Roman? I don't remember. The point is, though, like, some of the gods go by their Greek names, some go by their Roman names. There's actually a cute part in Raoul's route where he notices that Lynette uses the, I think it's the Roman terms. So, Raoul catches himself whenever he uses the Greek name and then switches to using Romans so that Lynette understands him. And I think that's kind of cute. Whatever happened to the whole gods aren't allowed on Earth rule? Well, the deconsentes don't really give a fuck, to be honest. The rule is there, but they don't really follow it. Not all of them, anyway. Because, like, clearly Venus doesn't. Eros is Greek, Cupid is Roman. Okay. Right. I understand. Rules for thee, not for me. Yeah, basically. But yeah, generally her whole vibe is, like, she just kind of wants to be pretty and, like, have romps with Mars. So on to Mars. Mars is not a himbo. Mars is actually very smart to an extent, but he's also, I mean, I guess he's a little bit stupid, but, like, he's not a himbo. You guys don't know what himbos are. You think a guy just has muscles and that makes him a himbo. Himbos have to be nice. Mars is not nice. Anyway. So the whole crux of his relationship with Lynette is just, Dad, you're not the boss of me. Because he spends all of his time being strict towards Cupid. He wants her to fix the marriage problem, even though that's not her domain. Her domain is romance, not marriage. He insists on her following all of the rules that exist in Celestia, and that she just, like, focus on being a goddess. He dismisses her interest in humanity because he thinks that humans are weak and pathetic little worms that wouldn't survive if gods didn't control them or influence them. And he doesn't think that Lynette can actually survive without using her bow, and she's like, I'll show you, Dad! And she sneaks off to Earth, and he's basically the whole reason why she sneaks to Earth, to, like, prove herself. But yeah, he thinks humans are incapable of surviving without the gods. He doesn't understand how much society has developed. At the end of almost every route, he comes to realize that humanity has really, like, improved over time. And that's why I say he gets humbled. Because it's like, he has to realize that the gods don't really have as much of a place in humanity as they used to, because human society has kind of developed past the need for them. So that's something he kind of has to learn in a lot of these routes. He's also super down bad for Venus. If Venus asks him to do anything, or just compliments his muscles, he, like, short circuits and explodes because it's a pretty woman complimenting him. Especially when she, like, gushes about his muscles. The voice actors for these two are fucking crazy, because whenever Venus talks to Mars, she, like, sounds borderline like she's experiencing something. I don't know if I can say the term, but she sounds like she's feeling it. Do you know what I mean? Not just a pretty woman, literally the pretty woman. This is true. It is the pretty woman who is also his wife. So, like, you know, down bad for the wifey. Will do anything for his wife. Real. Can you show an example? No! If I do that, I am pretty sure my channel will be literally eradicated by the YouTube gods. I can do no such thing. But, yeah, no. She's like, she gets really excited about his muscles, basically. And every time she starts complimenting his muscles, he's like, my dearest Venus. My goddess Venus. And they, like, flirt, and it's like, Lynette just kind of stands there like, my parents are so cringe. She's just like, ew, they're flirting. Yuck. It's very funny. For those of you who don't know your mythology, Venus is the goddess of beauty, Mars is the god of war. And those are the two, since I already explained that Lynette is an angel and that Cupid is a title, they are not actually Lynette's parents. They are kind of her adoptive parents who were like responsible for looking over her as she became Cupid. So she treats them like parents because she calls them mom and dad, but they aren't like literally her parents. Surrogates, also not really. They're just kind of like, I guess adoptive would be the best term. But she just calls them her parents. Mom and dad. How does Mars feel about Jupiter? He greatly respects Jupiter, actually. He trusts Jupiter's opinions and, like, trusts him as a leader. He tries his best to stay in Jupiter's good graces most of the time. Venus also likes Jupiter, but tends to tease him a lot. Which we'll get to in a bit. Here's Lady Minerva. If you will remember her from Raoul's route, she's the one who's, like, crazy obsessed with, Alexander the Great and trying to get him to reincarnate. But here's Lady Minerva. She is the goddess of war, wisdom, and the arts. She serves as Cupid's mentor, refers to her as Q-chan, and will support her efforts to go to the human world and be happy. As stated, she's a big lover of humanity and humans' innovations. Particularly, she loves movies. She teaches Lynette all about the human world through these movies, and many of which have Raoul Aconite as the lead role. Huh, interesting. I wonder why. See my Raoul slide for further information. She often pops up during pretty much all of the routes to give Lynette very timely advice. Because Minerva is the one who, like, very actively goes to the human world a lot. To, like, mess around with humanity and, like, have fun or whatever. So she will be the one who goes to visit Lynette and, like, offer her advice as a goddess and as, like, a mentor figure. Usually encouraging her to pursue romance or whatever. Lynette has to call her Lady Minerva, but because if she tries to call her Aunt Minerva or Auntie, Minerva gets super pissed. She does not like not being referred to as Lady Minerva. It makes her very angry. And yes, she is the eyes always closed trope unless necessary. The only time I saw her eyes open was during Raoul's route when she finally managed to turn Raoul back into Alexander. That was the only time I saw this woman's eyes open. Every other route, they're closed. But yeah, Minerva is honestly a really fun character. It's another case of, like, the voice actress really selling it for me. The voice actresses they got for this game, like, really went ham for the side characters. They, like, really had fun with the acting. It's, like, super exaggerated and silly. Minerva's in particular has, like, a lot of weird inflections that I think just make her a really fun character. You really feel the eccentricity. I forgot to say this when I was explaining the prologue, but, a lot of the other members of the Deconsentes and the other gods just don't really like Minerva because she's so eccentric and, like, so obsessed with humanity compared to the rest of them. So they don't really vibe with her. They think she's kind of a freak. And Lynette mentions, like, oh, I'm not really supposed to hang out with Lady Minerva because the other gods don't really like her very much. They think she's a bit weird, but I think she's nice. And I'm just like, Lynette, please. Lynette, please. But, you know. She is weird, but it's okay. And then you find out she's really weird. And that's less okay, but it is what it is. I think that her design is really fun. I didn't say this about Venus and Mars, because I can't show you what Venus looks like, but like Mars and like Minerva, the gods all have like really fun designs that I really like. Minerva's in particular, I really like the arm sash here, like that kind of accessory. She also always wears like funky hats. All of her hats come from the human world. So she wears like cowboy hats and like big fancy like roaring 20s hats. Do not call her just Minerva. Shut up! Fine, Lady Minerva. Lady Minerva's always wearing like different human hats, even if it clashes with her outfits. And I love that for her. What a vibe. Alright, and now we have the secret route. So, the sensitive parasite, Peter Flage, also known as Lord Jupiter, also known as Chi. You see this little fluff ball? This little guy? That is our mascot character. When Lynette first goes to the human realm, in the normal common route, she is escorted, well not really escorted, but like she goes with Chi, who is a divine beast. She doesn't realize whose divine beast it is. All the gods have their own divine beasts, or the deconsentes do, I should say. So she doesn't know whose divine beast it is. At first she thinks it's Lady Minerva's, but she later finds out that it's Jupiter's, and she's like, oh, I guess Lord Jupiter wanted to make sure I would be safe or something, okay. But she just kind of hangs out. He just goes, Chi, Chi, and like snuggles with her a lot. She uses Chi as a back massage tool a lot, because he has electric powers, so like she'll use the electric shocks generated between his horns here, and like apply them to pressure points on her back to get like a back massage. She doesn't like this. But yeah, so Chi is like the little animal mascot character you see in all the other routes. He's just kind of vibing a lot of the time. She will sometimes use him like a rubber duck of sorts, where she will like vent at him about the events going on during the routes, and he'll just sit there like, Chi. Just kind of like chillin', you could say. And then she kind of disappears for a while in the common route, because instead we get the intern Peter Flage, this guy. So in the common route, Peter is an intern of the production company that produces the reality show Lynette and the other parasites star in. I mentioned that in the beginning. They are on a show called Parasite House, where it's all of them living in the same house, and it's focusing on Lynette's work as a advisor, trying to get the boys to actually find partners. He works as a production assistant. He's very clumsy. He's not very good at his job. He's a bit of a dork. Like, he has this like insane bravado to him, and is constantly just like, ah ha ha, like that kind of personality. But he's also terrified of women. Anytime a woman in the production staff tries to come towards him, he like freaks out and runs away from them. And that's pretty much all you see of him. He does show up again in the Shelby route, because he applies to become the second assistant to Shelby. And it takes him a little bit to learn how to like work through the office, but he does kind of do a good job, and then he works for Shelby temporarily. But then he eventually does also quit. I forget why. I forget what the reasoning is. Anyway, so you don't find out until you unlock the secret route at the end that he's actually Lord Jupiter. But you're supposed to be able to guess, because Peter, when you are saying Jupiter in Japanese, it's like Jupiter, right? And so you could take part of that, and like there's literally a scene, there's like an actual voiced dialogue line where he goes, Jupiter, Jupiter, Peter. And then he names himself Peter. This guy! Oh, your brain. You're so big brain. Good job, buddy. How long did it take you to figure that one? So that's how you're supposed to figure out that he's Jupiter. I have like a dedicated like thread in a Discord chat server that I'm in with some friends, where I named the thread Jupiter, because it's so stupid, and it's just me complaining about how much I hate this man. I love this man, but I hate this man. I love this man, but I hate this man. Okay, so he's secretly Jupiter, who is also the game's mascot / Lynette's divine beast companion, Chi. He is all three of these. You usually see him as Chi, then, because, like, you don't see Jupiter in, like, pretty much any of the routes until you get to, like, Alan's. And then you really don't see Peter, besides in Shelby's. You don't see the three of them in the same route until you get to the secret route. So he's afraid of almost everything. Like, as Chi, he's a big scaredy cat, and Lynette always talks about how whenever something, like, startles him, he goes to hide in, like, the closet, or under the bed, or will, like, literally fly out of the apartment because he's so scared. But especially women, pretty much only Lynette he is not afraid of. Every other woman that comes near him, he's like, oh god, a woman, and he has to, like, run away. Or, sorry, oh me, a woman, and then he has to run away. So he's just, that's why he's called the sensitive parasite. This is their way of addressing the fact that he's kind of a scaredy cat. I guess they didn't want to localize it as, like, scaredy cat or whatever. The, like, anxious parasite probably didn't have the same ring, so they called it sensitive. In order to justify the secret route, his route is basically an entirely different alternate universe. It does not take place in the same universe that the original route with the Parasite 5 do. In order to be with Jupiter, you're basically in an AU. So you, like, pair with him in a world separate from the canon one. The whole appeal with him is supposed to be that he encompasses a lot of traits that, like, girls tend to like in their otome guys. As Jupiter, he's a bit more like Kudere and doesn't really, like, have many expressions. He's very serious, has a very, like, low, serious voice. As Peter, he's a bit more, like, clumsy and, like, dorky, because he's just, like, not really good at human stuff because he is a god. As Chi, he's got that, like, very cutesy baby animal charm, and he's, like, all nuzzly and affectionate and, like, curls up with Lynette in bed all the time. He's meant to be kind of a whole package, because he covers a lot of different tropes in one character. Isn't he also the one who apparently canonically forced Lynette to be Cupid, or do we just ignore that part of the lore for the other route? No, they actually do openly acknowledge that part of the lore. The whole reason that he cares a lot about Lynette, like, as Cupid, and, like, also in general, is because he feels guilty for separating the angels. His perspective on that whole thing is that he never wanted those two to be separated. He loved watching them play around in heaven. Particularly, he loved watching her in heaven. But he does not have as much control as you think he would as the Lord God. A lot of his route focuses on how, as the Lord God, he does not have as much power as people would think. And he's kind of at the whims of the rest of the Deconsentes, and particularly he, like, lives in a certain individual's shadow, to where he doesn't feel like he can actually be a proper leader. Because Mercury decided that she had to become a goddess, he could not get him to choose anybody else. He could not convince Mercury to choose a different god. Or a different angel, I should say, sorry. Actually, when Mercury first chooses Lynette to become a goddess, he wants her to become Nike. But any goddess who becomes... any angel that becomes Nike dies, like, very, very quickly, because Nike is the goddess of war. If you would know if you played Goddess of Victory Nike. So, like, if she had actually been chosen to become Nike, she probably would have died a lot more quickly than if she became Cupid. So the only way that Jupiter could get her to like last longer, basically, would be if she was Cupid. So he can only convince Mercury to make her Cupid instead of Nike. And that's, like, the only thing he can do to help her. He feels terribly guilty, especially when he sees how heartbroken her paired angel is, like Alan. He hates how much Alan suffers when seeing Lynette be pulled away. And also hates that they had to, like, send him away, like, force him to fall. If he had his way, he would have just done everything he could to make sure that those two could stay together. But he just doesn't have the power. A lot of Peter's route focuses on how he is very invested in looking after Lynette. He thinks that Lynette is, like, kind of like the hope for changing how the gods view humanity. Because Lynette has such a very kind and genuinely loving soul, and the way that she cares about other people, it feels like it makes sense that she would be the one who could, like, really help Celestia turn around their views on humanity. So as part of his route, he is the one who actually asks Lynette to go to Earth, like, himself. Like, he requests this of her. And so she gets to go without having to sneak there this time. She enrolls in school, and she's allowed to stay in the human world for 4 years, where she can study humanity, she can study how humans work, and specifically, Jupiter's goal with her is to make her understand all of the love types that are available on Earth. Because if she can learn all of the different love types and, like, come to really understand how different people love, that will allow her to ascend to Juno. Because in this route, Juno is still missing, and they need somebody to become Juno. While Lynette is studying, like, love types and, like, romantic psychology and, like, experiencing human things, he is trying to make sure that they find Juno's divine artifacts. One of Jupiter's powers is that he can sense where all of the divine artifacts are. That's why in the normal route, Lynette's not supposed to use her bow, because that would alert Jupiter to the fact that she snuck down to Earth. So, like, he's just kind of, like, trying to sense when Juno's, divine artifacts come back to Celestia. If they come back, that's a sign that, Juno died, and her position in the Deconsentes is vacant. Until they find out where she is, or until the artifacts return, they can't really do anything. But that's why Lynette has time to study. But not a lot of time, because one of the other main reasons he wants her to become Juno is because this will preserve her soul. As we discussed in Alan's route, being Cupid puts a time limit on your soul. Your soul can only handle using divine energy for so long, unless you become an actual member of the Deconsentes. It's basically like a way to lose life force very, very quickly to, like, fire off those arrows. Particularly for Cupids, they lose more energy if they fire golden arrows, but they restore their energy if they fire more leaden arrows. But obviously, you can't have someone who is literally called the god or goddess of love only firing leaden arrows that cause people to break up. So, like, they have to figure out a different way to fix things. She still, like, goes through college, meets Gil and Claris, still, like, goes to Cupid Corp, but she does it as an internship. Like, she joins Cupid Corp when she's much younger, so technically the game takes place when all of the characters are younger than they should be. Like, at least by a couple of years. Which I found weird, because they still made Ryuki, like, join Cupid Corp, and I was like, isn't Ryuki literally a minor at this point? I don't know. I guess I wasn't supposed to question it too deeply. Because I was like, Ryuki's 19 in the canon route, but if she's joining Cupid Corp as an intern, doesn't that mean Ryuki's, like, a teenager? Like, a young teenager? Weird. That's weird. But she still, like, goes to Cupid Corp eventually, and she still, gets tasked to work with the parasites. But interestingly, in this route, Shelby comes clean, like, almost immediately that he is the prestige parasite. And because he, like, really thinks that she is capable of helping him. It's interesting that she still gets tasked with the Parasite 5 despite being an intern. Also, I should say, too, Jupiter becomes an intern at Cupid Corp alongside Lynette so that he can keep a better eye on her, but does it as a human, as Peter. And that's kind of where the, like, incompetency comes in. But they're, like, both interns, and some of the other bridal advisors that Lynette is studying under mentioned that, like, Peter basically really fits in with the normal Parasite 5 because he's so scared of everything, and that makes him a sensitive parasite. He is the original parasite because they don't call the other boys parasites until, like, after Peter. He was the OG parasite, apparently. But then they start referring to them as the Parasite 6, and are like, doesn't it just make sense for them to be 6? And I'm just like, if it did, why is he only being revealed as a parasite in this route? Weird. So that part of it was a bit silly. But, Due to circumstances in the route, Lynette ends up accidentally shooting him with the Cupid's bow and makes him fall in love with her. She shoots Chi. So she shoots him when he's in this form, because she was trying to shoot somebody else to get them to fall in love, but Chi got in the way and took the arrow. I think she was trying to shoot Owen and Melanie, actually, because she, like, acknowledged that they would be a really good couple, and she just wanted to, like, jumpstart the relationship. But she gets in the way and gets shot, then reveals that he was Peter, so then this makes Peter fall in love with her, but she does not realize yet that he is Jupiter. She just thinks that, she just realizes the Chi-Peter connection in this first part. And at first she cannot find herself attracted to him at all, because she still sees him as Chi. Like, she can't reconcile that these are the same individual, and so she's like, huh, whenever Peter tries to be affectionate with her, because she's just like, it's like being affectionate with Chi, who I saw as, like, a pet. Though there is this funny parallel where, like, in the beginning, she like, bathed with Chi, because she didn't realize that she was, Jupiter. And she, like, covers his face with his little paws and gets really shy because he sees naked woman. But then there's, like, an opposite scenario that happens after he gets hit with Cupid's bow, where he tries to follow her into the bath, and she's like, you realize you can't bathe with me anymore, right? Guys aren't supposed to bathe with women. And he's, like, so shocked, he just goes, Chi? One of the enduring character traits is that, even though he has, like, a much deeper, like, lower voice as Peter and Jupiter, he makes all of the tiny Chi noises in, like, the deeper register. So it's like, Chi, 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 Chi. It's very silly. Oh, I forgot to put his voice actor on here. Anyway, his voice actor is Okamoto Nobuhiko. I honestly didn't recognize him in this role at all. He does a really good job making it sound like a different character. I can normally hear the voice actor's, like, original tone when they are acting as a character in, like, almost any media, but I really couldn't tell that it was Nobu at first, so props to him. He did a really good job masking his voice. Guys, if I wake up tomorrow and my voice is gone, I'm so sorry. I can feel it coming in the air tonight. Oh god. I'm dying. Are you really gonna be sorry? No. But, like, a little bit. It'll have been worth it, but, like, a little bit. I'll be a little bit sorry. I lost my voice ranting about Cupid Parasite. Yeah, that's the sequel to I lost my voice explaining otome terms in general. Because, lest we forget, the last time I got laryngitis was because I was ranting too much about otome as a whole, not even just one otome game. I'm sorry I'm like this, but also I'm not. I'm not sorry at all. Anyway, okay, so he gets shot with the arrow, and he starts to understand what love is. He mentions the only love that he had ever felt before this point was fraternal. Like, for his siblings. And we learn a little bit about, like, the lore of Jupiter and how, like, the stuff about, like, Cronus and, like, how Cronus, like, ate all of Jupiter's siblings, and then when he went to eat what he thought was Jupiter, it was actually, like, a stone. And the stone caused him to, like, throw up all the other, siblings that were eaten. But we learn more about the story from, like, Jupiter's perspective, where, like, yes, Jupiter was spared, but he had to go into hiding, and he was raised by a group of humans. And these humans, basically instilled fear in him that, like, at any time, something in this world could be Cronus coming back to eat him. And that is why he is the sensitive parasite. He is scared of literally anything secretly being Cronus, and the idea that he could be eaten at literally any time by Cronus coming to seek revenge or something. So he was basically, like, given paranoia from a very young age. And so he's a very paranoid guy. Then we also come to find out that the stone was not actually a stone. There's a lot of, like, other, like, minor plot stuff that happens leading up to this, but I'm just gonna get to, like, the core of the plot of the route, which is Peter is constantly afraid of this, like, impending sense of dread. Like, he feels like there's something, like, actually coming in the air. And, like, the vibes are just off. He feels like he might know what this is, but he's not entirely sure. So he's just trying to be very protective of, like, Lynette and make sure that she stays safe, because whatever this is definitely a threat to the gods. And during the route, we occasionally get cuts to a scene in the underworld with, like, a strange voice talking about waking up and, like, taking revenge and things like that. And then eventually we get a scene with Juno. We find out where Juno is. She's in the underworld. She has been performing a specific ritual to bring back somebody. And she's like, look, I brought you back. I've done it. We can be together. We can be happy together forever now. They told me not to do it, but I just needed to be with you. And the person that she brought back is like, that's nice, and then kills her and absorbs her life force so that they can manifest. Enter Zeus. Now, those of you might be wondering, hey, Jupiter and Zeus are supposed to be the same person, because that's just two different names for the same god. Not in this game. In this game, they're twins. Surprise! But Zeus is the older twin. Peter is the younger one. Freaking Zeus! Hi. So yeah, Zeus is Jupiter's twin brother, who is also intersex. Like, there's, like, literally a line in the story where it talks about how, like, their top half has, personalities. Zeus is Zeus's. And then the bottom half is, masculine Zeus's. If you catch my drift. Raul's not gonna like this lore change. You'd be surprised, actually. When Raul meets Zeus, he actually thinks that this change is freaking sick. He's just like, wow, that's crazy. You have both parts? That's awesome. Raul is weird. Anyway, so the stone that Cronus had been fed, back when their mom was trying to protect them, was Zeus. The stone was Zeus. So Zeus got eaten by Cronus in order to protect Jupiter. And so Zeus is really pissed off at Jupiter for this, because it's like, what the heck? Why did I have to be sacrificed? I'm the better brother. So he's, like, kind of angry about that, and starts, like, taking full control over Celestia and the Deconsentes. And Zeus just becomes, like, more and more power hungry over time. He doesn't believe that love exists because his own mother, like, fed him to his dad. So, you know, is love even real at that point? And he starts, like, thinking that he's better than the rest of humanity and better than the rest of the gods. Basically, he thinks he is #1 in the entire world and that everybody else should just bow to him. And then, because he's going crazy and wants to take over all of humanity and, like, subjugate them, the rest of the Deconsentes are like, oh, that's weird. We shouldn't let him do that. And they seal him away. He has been sealed this entire time, but the only one who didn't really want to seal him, and is thus the one who busts him out, is Juno. But he kills her and takes advantage of the fact that she had been in love with him to, like, basically eat her energy and, like, become stronger. And then eventually he's able to, like, physically manifest in the real world. There's a point where Lynette is going to, like, work with the Cupid, with the Cupid, where Lynette's going to work with the Parasite 5, and Zeus is just, like, hanging out in the room with them, like, chatting with them normally, and is like, I mean, we don't really know why he's chatting with the Parasite 5 in that instance, but he just is. And then Peter shows up with everybody's coffee orders and then sees Zeus and, like, drops the coffee in shock because he realizes who it is. And Zeus is like, hi, my beloved little brother. And just, like, starts being, like, you know, evil, doing, like, evil guy things. Peter. But yeah, so Zeus is, like, the main villain for, like, the latter half of Jupiter's route. We find out, because Zeus has finally revealed himself, we do eventually, like, well, we, as the viewer, find out that everybody's one and the same, but Lynette still doesn't know, funny enough. I'm trying to figure out how to word the sequence of events, but, like, long story short, they come to realize that the only way to stop Zeus is if they can manage to get Lynette to ascend to Juno and, like, use the power of love to, like, beat this man the frick up. Because he thinks love is stupid and not real. But Zeus is honestly very powerful and could end up, like, eating all of the other gods if they aren't careful. So, the goal is to try and, like, stop him and subdue him before he can get full power, and, like, before he can start eating the other gods and goddesses. The most notable part of this that I think you guys will find funny is that, like, Lynette has to get all of the boys to, like, channel their love types. And she, like, gets them to, like, shout the name of their love type out loud, like a Super Sentai, like, transformation sequence. And it causes the energy to, like, harness into her bow, and then she just shoots this, like, giant rainbow arrow at Zeus to, like, force him back into being sealed. It's so silly! Literally the silliest situation ever. Like, we're supposed to be scared of Zeus, but, like, it's really hard to take Zeus seriously as a villain. He's just kind of a joke. But it's okay. It's allowed to be a bit goofy. But yeah, in this route, all of the love interests find out that she is Cupid. And then they do also find out that Peter is Jupiter, because eventually Lynette finds out too, because they have to go back to Celestia. Because Peter is scared that Zeus will hurt her, so they go back to Celestia. And when they go back to Celestia, that's when she finds out that he was actually Jupiter this whole time. But she kind of knew. She was like, you knew too much about Jupiter's, like, history to, like, not be Jupiter. And Jupiter's like, aha, it appears I have made a fucky wucky. Gee. So that's kind of how that goes. Shouting your love types is the silliest part of all that. It really is. Could you imagine being forced to shout that you are a ludus out loud? But I mean, the best part is that it's Raul. Raul is just like, ahaha, I am very happy to be here because this means I get to be part of mythological history. Because he's a dork like that. But yeah, so their route is the most, like, I think part of the reason I still like this route is because it just feels like a story that came out of, like, actual, like, Greek or Roman mythology. Like, it feels like a story that makes sense within, like, the realms of a mythological situation. It's just silly. And that's why I think the game doesn't take itself seriously. Like, obviously this route has moments of seriousness, don't get me wrong. But it overall just, like, treats the story, like, very lighthearted and silly. Like, you know there's no real stakes. Honestly, the route that was the darkest was probably Raul's routes. Is this the order of routes that you went in? Yes. It is also the recommended game order. So the recommended game order is, Ryuki, Shelby, Gil, Raul, Alan, Peter. And the reasoning, I think, is because it goes in order from least to most fantasy plot. In Ryuki's route, besides him, like, briefly encountering Venus and not even realizing that she's Venus, there's, like, no mention of the fantasy elements at all. He never finds out that she was Cupid, never finds out that her parents are gods, doesn't find out her tie to Celestia, like, never finds out any of it. Ryuki is, like, the most attached. Shelby is pretty similar. Like, it pretty much has nothing to do with her being Cupid. It's, like, her being Cupid is very much, like, a side plot. Like, she has to deal with Mars, like, infecting Owen and, like, trying to sabotage Cupid Corp, but she kind of does that, like, behind Shelby's back, and Shelby never finds out that, like, Mars is her dad or that he was a god. He, like, never finds any of that out. Gil does eventually find out that she is Cupid in the middle of the route, and there's, like, this really silly sequence where he builds a car that can fly and uses it to fly up and crash into the barrier of Celestia so he can get back to Celestia and rescue her, which is very silly. But, like, that's the most amount of, like, fantasy, I guess, that there is, because he wants to, like, rescue her and, like, bring her back to Earth and, like, prove himself. He wants to prove himself to her dad, too, which is part of why he ends up in Celestia. He's like, no, don't take her back. I love her. Let me marry her. Or something. I don't remember. But I vividly remember the flying car. And he, like, works alongside Alan for this, because Alan reveals that he's a succubus. I think Claris also reveals that she's a succubus around this time as well, but anyway, Gil just kind of, like, takes that information in stride and is like, I don't really care. You know how to get me to Lynette, so I'm gonna listen to you. I don't care. And then Raoul's route is, like, half and half. Like, half of it is more focused on, like, the actual romance story. The other half, like I said, is the fact that he's the reincarnation of Alexander the Great, and how Lady Minerva uses the bow after Lynette falls in love with him to, like, turn him back into Alexander, and basically leaves her without her bow and without her lover, which is so fucked up if you ask me. That's literally so crazy. I can't believe that Lady Minerva would betray her like that. That was our mentor figure! How could you? But the game tells us that Minerva's been using all of the Cupids like that up to this point, because her goal has always been to get her hands on the bow. But the only way to get her hands on the bow is if Cupid falls in love. Because if it's after Cupid dies, the bow gets, like, locked up and, like, can't be touched by anybody else. But if it's, like, because Cupid fell in love, but Cupid herself is technically still alive, then she can, like, steal the bow, basically. And then Alan, because Alan was, like, her soulmate, that's why you technically have to do Alan last. You get the most plot, and that's also where you find out about Jupiter's involvement with, like, her becoming Cupid. So you have to see it from Alan's perspective first, and then you see it from Jupiter's. Also, even though Alan was super against her becoming Juno in his route, he's suddenly fine with her becoming Juno in Peter's route because he realizes that Lynette is in love with Peter. So he's just like, alright, I mean, I would prefer that she falls in love with a human, but I guess if her becoming Juno will still preserve her soul, I guess that's fine. Like, he just kind of, like, grudgingly accepts it, which I found to be a little bit out of character, but I was like, okay. I guess it fits with the self-deprecating personality. But that is, I think that's why that's the recommended play order. It goes from, like, least to most fantasy involvement. Ryuki and Shelby are, like, canonically the most realistic. Even when Lynette and Peter go to tell everybody that they are Jupiter and Cupid, respectively, it's Shelby and Ryuki who are like, that's literally a lie. You're literally punking us right now. This is just, like, really elaborate VR special effects. Like, there's, like, ain't no way. They refuse to believe it. Gil's kind of half and half. He wants to believe because it's Lynette, but also he does think she's a little bit crazy. Raoul's just like, gods? For real? And just gets excited about the prospect of there being, like, gods in his presence. And then, Alan, of course, already knows. Alan is, like, actually there, like, helping them organize their plans. So yeah, I introduced the guys in their recommended play order. But, speaking of orders, here are my route rankings. So, as I said on Twitter, if you follow my Twitter, you saw me talk briefly about this, but I have two different lists, okay? So, I have most to least enjoyable, which is a very objective, my opinion, subjective is what I meant to say. This is a subjective list that is based on my preferences and what I liked about each route. And then the other list is most to least canon, which is how I feel the routes should be in terms of, like, canon, accurate, like, most likely to happen for Lynette. Like, basically, if there was going to be a Cupid Parasite anime, these are the routes that I think would make the most sense to have be her canon route, if she was going to be choosing one. But let's focus on the ones that I found the most enjoyable first. So, of course, number one is Shelby. Of course he is. I love Shelby very, very much. He's the fake dating, fake marriage route. I also just think that their chemistry together works really well. I feel like I said before when I was talking about Shelby, I feel like if Lynette, as a character, took the love type test, she would score pragma. Because she cares so much about, like, her career and, like, her focus on, like, work and all of that stuff. I feel like that just makes sense for her character. And so her working together with Shelby and both of them being, like, workaholic types, I feel like that balance worked really well. And I just liked the vibes. I thought Shelby was, like, a really, like, cool, suave, smooth love interest when he started acting like romantic towards her. It was really good. Next, of course, is Raoul. I really liked the twist of him being Ludus. I absolutely thought he was going to be Mania, but then when I found out that he was Ludus, I was like, oh, huh. And then I found out that the beginning of the route literally had them banging, like, right out the gate, and I was like, whoa, huh? And it just was, like, super interesting all the way through. I liked the Friends with Benefits angle. I liked the switch from him being casual about love to suddenly being super committed to her. I liked... The only thing I didn't like was that scene where they got trapped in the shrine. But, like, I liked everything that came after, even though it was, like, a very crazy plot twist situation. They were very much a love conquers all situation, with her being able to fire the arrow and bring him back, and I really liked that. I thought that was neat. Next is Peter. I usually don't like secret routes or, like, final routes, because those are always considered the most quote-unquote canon or true route. But I actually really liked Peter. When I first met Peter in the common route, and as, like, a side character in the other routes, I thought he was obnoxious as hell. Because for some reason, maybe it's to throw off the scent so you don't realize that he's Jupiter, they make him act so much more obnoxious as that version of Peter than he is in his own route. Like, they make him act like just this most pompous, stupid, head-empty guy on the planet, and I really don't like stupid men. I need a guy to have at least a couple IQ points, and the common route version of Peter has 0. Maybe his IQ points get absorbed by the other guys around him. I don't know, but he was stupid. I didn't like him. And I was like, I remember thinking if Peter was going to be the secret route, I was going to be really pissed off because I needed him to be more serious. I was like, just be so for real right now. But I did end up getting that when I played Peter's route because he was very, like, he was more kudere, and if you guys know, I love me a kudere. I like girl kuderes and I like guy kuderes. Peter was no exception to this. He had more of that kudere vibe to him where he didn't really understand emotions because he always thought that as the Lord God, he needed to keep himself restrained. But he slowly learned, like, different emotions, especially romantic love, towards Lynette, and I thought that that was a very organic development, and he did still have moments of being, like, dorky or clumsy, but it made a lot more sense within this context than it did when he was just, like, full-on, oh my goodness, I am a bit stupid, ah-ha-ha, when he was the, production agency intern. I just feel like it made sense as a route. I really liked his characterization there better than I did in the common route. Ryuki. So Ryuki is kind of in the middle of the road. He was the first route that I played, so he has a soft spot in my heart for being cute. But I think maybe because his route has the least to do with or some of the least to do with the goddess stuff, I just kind of felt like it was just, like, almost out of place. I feel like, if I were to think of it realistically, I don't know if he would actually, like, be with Lynette romantically. I liked their dynamic, and I liked the slow burn, but maybe because it was a slow burn, I feel like it didn't really make a lot of sense overall. But I did still like him. I thought he was a good guy, so middle of the road. Gil is near the bottom because it's Gil. I really didn't like the fact that, like, part of the reason he fell in love with her was because he felt like he needed to take care of her because she was such a helpless little girl. I didn't like that angle at all. I feel like his obsession with her came from a really weird place, and I wish he liked her more as, like, a person than as, like, a girl to take care of. I feel like he kind of lost sight of the fact that she was, like, an individual and just kind of focused more on the fact that he could take care of her and, like, provide for her. And, you know, some girls are into the fact that a guy might be focused 100% on being a provider, but not me. I want there to be a little bit more of a balance. And the thing about Lynette, too, is that she also kind of insisted on there being more of a balance between her and Gil. Which they did eventually get to, but for a long time, Gil just kept it very one-sided with, like, trying to do everything for her. And it made her feel kind of like she was being, like, spoiled, or was, like, too helpless. And I just feel like that dynamic wouldn't last very long for the two of them. And then Alan. Alan's route just didn't have enough romantic moments for me to really feel invested in him. I thought he was going to be the playboy route, and I was prepared for that, and then he wasn't, and then everything in his route was just so, like, milquetoast, which is a term for something being really, really bland. There wasn't enough interesting scenes for me to feel interested in him as a romantic interest. As, like, a love interest, I guess. It was just, he was being hands-off because he felt like he couldn't, be with her due to, like, the fact that he was a demon and he didn't want to corrupt her because she's a goddess. So I get it, I get why, but it felt like, I don't know, it just kind of felt, like, boring. I wish I could have seen more romantic scenes with them. But it really didn't feel super romantic to me. It didn't become romantic until, like, after the reincarnation stuff, and it just... The reason that it took so long for me to finish this game was because I didn't want to keep playing Alan's route. That's literally the reason. I didn't want to finish playing Alan's route because I was so bored, and I just didn't really like how slow it was. Like, there's slow burn, and then there's just, like, slow storytelling, and I feel like Alan's was slow storytelling. And slow burn. So it didn't appeal to me, and that's why it's on the bottom. Now, despite it being on the bottom in terms of, like, routes that I found enjoyable, in terms of routes that I think are canon, Alan is number 1. And the reason is because the story literally calls them paired angels. They are a pair. They are a fated pair. They are soulmates. You can't then come in here and tell me that Peter is supposed to be the canon route. Because Peter isn't Alan. They're not soulmates. Peter was, like, looking at them and, like, spying on them and was like, oh, they're so cute together. I especially love that little girl angel. Haha, she's so cute. And then is like, oh, cool, she gets to become a goddess? Well, I'll just make sure that she's Cupid's, that she lives a little bit longer, and I'll personally look after her to apologize to that angel who doesn't get to be with her anymore. But the implication is supposed to be that he's, like, in love with her while she's an angel. There's, like, this whole scene that talks about the first time he heard Lynette's voice after she was converted into a goddess. And how he's, like, so, like, love-struck by how her voice sounds. But, like, he was in love with her before she had a voice. Granted, they were a fated pair before her soul was reshaped and altered into who she was now. Well, sure. But, like, at her core, she still is that angel. They just adjusted it so that her purpose would be more focused on doing her job as Cupid. Like, she is still that person, like, in that core soul. It's just that her soul was altered to better suit being Cupid, to, like, become Cupid and stay Cupid. Which is something that Alan points out when he, like, takes her soul and makes her reincarnate. Like, even though he forced her to become a human and, like, be fully human, she's, like, slowly becoming more and more Cupid-like as she gets older because it's just what her soul is destined to become. And that frustrates him, but, like, at least she's technically still human. As long as she never gets her hands on Cupid's bow, everything would be fine. And she wouldn't become fully Cupid. But, like, I just... Maybe this is just the sentimentalist in me, but I think if you're going to spend a lot of time talking about how two characters are a fated pair and how they are, like, meant to be together, I feel like they should be considered canon. Like, you can't pull a soulmates trope and then make it that they're not soulmates. Because the other thing, I didn't say this about Peter's route, but actually, Alan tries to intervene a little bit in her life back in that route, and becomes her professor at one point, and is, like, trying to get close to her as her professor, and, like, flirt with her, and, like, try to, you know, get her to be romantically interested in him and stuff, for the sake of the shenanigans. But she keeps turning him down, and then, like, always sees him as her professor for, like, that entire route. Like, she always refers to him as Professor Melville. She, like, never calls him Alan. Which is a little bit funny, but it's also so sad when you think about how Alan literally does everything that he does to try and take care of her and, like, make sure that she'll be alive. It's just like, man, that's rough, buddy. It made me feel so bad. And, like, even when she finds out that she and Alan were, like, paired souls, like, paired angels, she's just like, oh. Like, she finds out because Jupiter is, like, trying to apologize to her for, like, taking her away from him and, like, making them sad. And she was just like, but I'm not sad. I'm with you. you did what you had to do. It's not your fault. And I'm just like, ew. Like, that whole scene was kind of gross to me. Because it's obvious that because of, like, the grooming she went through to become a goddess, like, she doesn't care. But, like, in the Alan route, she cares way more. She cares about the fact that she was taken away from Alan and, like, wants to be with Alan. It's like, it didn't feel right. Which I guess is why it's kind of good that Peter is considered an alternate universe from everybody else. Peter is only number 2 because he would be canon in his alternate universe and his alternate universe only. That's why he's higher than the others. If this was based on, like, just the common route, like, common universe, obviously she would never get with Peter. But, like, in terms of, like, the world that exists because of pursuing Peter, yeah, he's canon. But, like, we're not always there. The next is Shelby. Again, going back to what I said about Shelby being number 1. Shelby makes the most sense to be paired with her. They have the same kind of work ethic and view on working. I think that if it wasn't her soulmate, Shelby would probably make the most sense within the like normal route. The normal universe, I should say. I think it makes the most sense for her to be with Shelby. Because she would score Pragma. I don't care what anybody else says. I know you have to score the same love type as your chosen love interest in order to go down their route, but, like, canonically, with her characterization, she would score Pragma. Therefore, Shelby is canon. Next would probably be Gil, because even though, again, I didn't really care for Gil's route, I do think that they have the most, like, genuine chemistry because they have a history together. And I think that if they were able to work on it, they would probably work out okay. And I guess it's specifically because I feel like Raul and Ryuki are both not interested enough in actual romance to, like, actually be believable as love interests. Raul is a bit more believable than Ryuki. I feel like Ryuki realistically would not fall in love with her, just because she's, like, barely there in his rankings. Unless they were, like, forced to interact more, he probably would never look at her as a romantic option. And then, like, for Raul, he only joins the corporation as a client because he's studying for a role. Realistically, he would get all the information he needs for that role and then be like, okay, I hope we can still be friends and talk about myths, but I'm gonna leave. And then he would leave. So I don't really see them working out, like, as, like, a true, actual canon relationship. They are at the bottom because they are the most superficial when it comes to being involved with the company. They don't actually want to find love. They're just there for their art forms, so to speak. Raul for acting, Ryuki for fashion. So that's my opinion. And you can choose to agree or disagree, but that is just how I feel personally. Whew. We did it. We did it, team. We made it. Alright, so that's my thoughts on Cupid Parasite. Whoopee! I made it. Thank you guys for listening. This was 3.5 hours of just straight yapping. I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you put up with me. But thank you for listening. This is a lot of fun to talk about. I tried my best to get through this game so that I could offer this comprehensive overview. If you want to know about other aspects of the game that I liked, I really like the art style. Like I was saying earlier, I love how the UI even looks very, like, poppy, like old, like, pop, kind of, like, retro art style. The soundtrack in this game is crazy. I wish I could play the soundtrack for you guys, but I would probably get, like, bogged or something. But like, the soundtrack for Cupid Parasite is so good. Each boy has their own individual theme song in their route, and they have, like, lyrics in the songs. And so many of the songs get stuck in my head, and they sound like they come, like, straight out of, like, old movies. They're so good. It suits each boy so well. I still get, like, Raul's and Shelby's stuck in my head the most often. Peter's is also pretty good. Ryuki's is pretty. Alan's is very, like, edgy and fun. And, like, Gil's is, like, a really sweet, like, love ballad, so it's also cute. Like, they're good songs. It really, like, suits the characters, and it makes you feel like you're in, like, maybe, like, a 70s, 80s, maybe even 90s, like, movie, just based on vibes. It's so fun. It really gets you, like, immersed in, like, it teaches you a lot about the characters through their songs. The rest of the soundtrack is also really good. It's, like, really jazzy, really upbeat, really good. Sound design, too. Voice actors all did really well. Even the side characters, there are some side character actors who also play a few of the, like, major side characters, but, like, they'll also voice NPCs, and, like, every character just has so much, like, pizzazz and flair in their vocal delivery. It's so good. All the love interests do a really good job, too. The game has, like, a feature that lets you save certain voice lines that you like hearing the delivery of in, like, a little gallery, so you can listen back to, like, certain voice lines. So I was constantly saving, like, the most, Doki Doki voice lines from each route so that I could listen to them over and over. It's good. It's a really good game overall. Honestly, it's very fun. I talked about how there's a bit of a difference between, like, otome that take themselves seriously and, like, those that are kind of more, like, comedy-focused. Cupid Parasite is definitely, like, more lighthearted than, like, a game like Amnesia or Bustafellows, but it's just fun. It's just really fun. It has moments of seriousness, but it's also just a really good time. I feel like it's very enjoyable. Oh, I realized something else I wanted to say about Peter's route that I forgot to include on his slide. I'm head empty. Peter's route, you don't make any choices. For the normal Parasite 5, you make choices, and that's how you get a good ending or a bad ending. For Peter's route, you make no choices at all. Your only choice is at the very beginning when you choose to start the route. So that's why Peter is considered, like, super canon, because you don't even make choices. Lynette just, like, makes choices for herself in that route, and you're just reading. You are just reading the story, for better or for worse. So I think that's part of why it's considered, like, so canon and, like, basically, like, non-negotiable in a lot of ways. But maybe because it's also an alternate universe, like, that version of Lynette just, like, knows what she's doing and knows what she wants. Versus the normal universe Lynette where you make choices for her. But Peter's route is really, like, just sitting there and reading it, and you just kind of go along with her for the ride. Which I think is interesting, because that's normally not how it works in an otome like this, but, I found it fun. It was cool to kind of see, like, Lynette make decisions for herself, and just kind of, like, be the independent character that I know that she is. Truly a girl boss. She doesn't need my input anymore. Fly free, my child. So I thought that aspect of this game was really cool, too. But, yeah. I would recommend if you're looking for something lighthearted and silly. Again, I don't know if this game is necessarily good for, like, a male audience, so maybe not for some of you, but, like, if you're just in it for some, like, good fun and, like, silly characters, I think it can be worth the adventure. You can only get Peter if you unlock all the other routes as good ends, so just keep that in mind, but yeah. Overall, good game. 10 out of 10. Game of all time. Whew. Okay. I have yapped for far too long. Onimama is probably gonna kick my butt soon to, start taking care of my nighttime tasks, and, also, I have early morning tasks. Game of all time. No, I mean that positively. Only says that because there was a fake marriage. I love fake marriage. That's not true. I love this game with or without the fake marriage. I think Shelby's neat. But no, I did really like this game. I'm going to be playing Hanakare next. I have to set up a certain account in order to, play Hanakare. So it might take a little bit. I'm thinking about setting that up before I go on my trip so I can play a little bit of Hanakare while I'm traveling. Because that'll give me something to do, while I travel. Maybe. We'll see what happens. But yeah, thank you guys for indulging me in my silly little otome ramblings. We might do a stream where we try to guess things about the Hanakare characters before I play. We'll see. But I wanted to do this, stream before I left, because, yeah, I finished the game, so I was excited to talk about it. Thank you, as always, for listening to me ramble. This is a very, I'm in my stinky form again, because I know this isn't for everybody. But I'm very grateful that you give me the opportunity to share stuff that I like and ramble about it for 3.5 hours. Holy moly. Thank you for listening for so long. Okay. So tomorrow, this is just a reminder, I said this at the beginning of the stream, but for those who weren't there, members, we will be having a Gorilla member stream probably at like 4 p.m. Eastern, Onigashima time, to just do some like housekeeping stuff, and so I can get in a little bit of members chattiness, in the end before I go on my trip. And then, we will be going right into the, like, all subscriber, you know, the public stream. The public stream where we'll be chatting before I go on my trip. So just keep that in mind for tomorrow. And then after that, I will be gone for a week. Try not to miss me too much. But we have it set up. We're gonna have tons of content going up while I'm gone. Plenty of videos, plenty of shorts. So hopefully you won't lose too much Unonium, but yeah, that'll be something we can discuss tomorrow properly. For now, I am going to go ahead and call it here, because I'm tired, I'm worn out. But yeah, thank you guys so much for choosing to spend time with me. I hope that you have a good rest of your time zone. And until I see you again, Yunotsu!